I'm Dave Lockran. With me, Adam Scher. Guy looks like he just woke up, doesn't he? Maybe he did. We're glad to be with you. Glad to have you with us. As always, it's the Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, January 7th, 2020, 2020, and it is presented by Super Draft. Heard of it? Well, if you haven't, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Then we'll jump into it. We've got 6 games. We're going to cover all of them in depth. We're going to make sure we get you set, prepped, ready here for this Tuesday slate. But let me tell you about Super Draft first. They're the future daily fantasy sports. Here's why. You can experience Super Draft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. Super Draft offers contests for basketball, football, baseball, hockey, golf. You can enjoy all the best sports all year round. So here's what you got to do. You sign up for Super Draft using the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. Claim your free $20 in super cash with your first deposit of $100 or more. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. There's no limits, just more winning. So I'll be honest, I didn't know a lot about Super Draft, Adam, before they started sponsoring, and I looked into it a little bit, and I actually like this concept. So essentially, the way the multiplier works is like Damian Lillard would have a 1.15 multiplier, and then if you get down to like I don't know, let's say Harry Giles multiplier would be significantly higher. So there's no salary, but you're getting the like his multiplier is 2 times 2. So you're getting the multiplier for the players instead of the salary. So you're getting more fantasy points for guys that you would play that would generally be less expensive. It's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. Sounds different.
So I'm going to get into a little bit of Super Draft, and I'm going to use Awesemo, and I'm going to get my $20 in super cash when I sign up and deposit north of $100 or more. All right, let's jump into it. Toronto and Portland. We've got a bunch of injuries here, and many of them had already happened. One of them significant. Fred VanVleet is out. We know that Pascal Siakam, Marc Gasol are out. Norman Powell for this one is doubtful. We don't expect him to play. And, well, it changes a ton. Raptors are still 2.5-point favorites here against the Blazers with a 220 total. Let's first jump right into it then with the Toronto Raptors. No VanVleet means, and Josh and I talked about it this morning, when you look at like the minutes for the guys that are expected to be out, including Norman Powell, it's like 130 plus minutes out of this rotation of 240 available minutes that you would normally get, assuming everyone was healthy.
Yeah, it's obviously a huge deal whenever one of the starters for Toronto goes down because they play so many minutes in their normal rotation for Nick Nurse. So, having Powell out, having VanVleet out, it obviously opens up the door for a lot of minutes to be played by other guys.
So what are you thinking on Toronto then?
Davis should be the primary beneficiary in terms of playing time, I would expect. He's been VanVleet's backup essentially. Obviously not expecting 38 minutes or anything from him like you're getting out of VanVleet, but I think he probably pushes upper 20s, low 30s in playing time. It should open the door for Hollis Jefferson to get a little bit more run and also to potentially have a bigger role because VanVleet and Lowry had their minutes staggered as well. So now they don't have the primary ball handler with the second unit either with VanVleet out. So I think a bigger role, more minutes for Hollis Jefferson, more minutes for Terrence Davis as the primary beneficiaries.
Yeah, and when you look at some of the players on this team, Nick Nurse just is not going to be apt to play them. Maybe they get a couple minutes, but I can't imagine many of these guys like Shamori Pons are going to be getting significant opportunity here. I mean, you got O'Shea Brissett. Seriously, many of these names, like the basketball fan, not even the casual fan, like the semi-serious basketball fan, has not heard of plenty of these guys. Okay, and like Matt Thomas, no longer on the injury report, so he's back with the team. They brought him up from the G League. They do have the bodies, but the question really is, how many of these bodies is Nick Nurse actually going to plug into his rotation today?
Right, and that's obviously the thing. Like they have the bodies, but Nick Nurse doesn't like using the bodies. So there's, I think at the very least, assuming that guys like Davis and Hollis Jefferson play well, the minutes should be there for them. I'm not overly concerned about getting a Minnesota style rotation or a Golden State style rotation where all these guys just, every player on the bench gets in to fill up the minutes.
So would you prioritize looking at this Toronto squad? Would you, I personally am like, I know Kyle Lowry's expensive, but I mean, it's just a phenomenal spot, not to mention just a good spot, but minutes are king, right? And you're going to get probably 40 minutes in regulation from Kyle Lowry in a game that right now has a relatively high total, only a 2.5 point spread. It's hard to look at some of these guys and say they're too expensive. Now, I think you could point towards some of them like Ibaka 8,300 and say, yeah, you don't need to prioritize Serge Ibaka at 8,300. 100% reasonable. But I'm not saying that I don't want any of these guys in my lineups either, even if they're a little bit pricey, because I expect minutes to be huge as they've already been, and even more so today, because like we just said, Nick Nurse is not going to say, and you know what? I was totally wrong on this when all these injuries happened. Was it like 3 weeks ago or maybe even a month ago now? I don't know. When I think we both said we thought Terrence Davis would get, I don't know, maybe 24 minutes or so. We've seen him get up there towards the end of December, but there's no way we can just assume that Terrence Davis is going to soak up 24 to 26 minutes at the guard in the backcourt.
Yeah, I mean Lowry already leads the league in minutes per game, so
Yep.
His minutes certainly aren't going down without Van Vliet. But the bigger thing too is that without Siakam or Van Vliet on the floor this year, he's averaged 1.33 DraftKings points per minute. Without Siakam on the floor, but with Van Vliet, he's only averaged 1 fantasy point per minute. So you should see a lot more production from him. He has a 30% usage rate in 234 minutes without Siakam or Van Vliet. Just from watching Toronto games, like you see plenty of times where Van Vliet essentially is running the offense and Lowry's just kind of out there. So Van Vliet being out, I think, is a huge bump to Lowry in terms of his rates and his opportunities today. The minutes, always there, but I think the production should be there too. So he's the number one priority for me. And then getting to guys like Ibaka, OG, Hollis Jefferson they're fine. It's a good matchup against Portland, but I think that Lowry is easily the priority for me.
Super chats rolling in. Hey, we appreciate you guys helping to support the channel and the site. Alpha Hater with the big 5-0. Good stuff, man. Much appreciated. The Maharishi, my man. He says, Team Laffy, ketchup on eggs, honey mustard on chicken nuggets. Yes, but I prefer chicken fingers. To heck with the haters. Funds towards that Kyle Edwards singler jersey fund. My man, appreciate you. And David, again, David's just hitting us with the super chats day in and day out. Appreciate you, man. Do you do ketchup on your eggs?
Do I do ketchup? No.
Okay. Do you think it's gross or you're just not a huge fan?
I just don't do it. I just don't do it.
Okay. Big discussion today. Honey mustard on chicken fingers?
Not religiously, but yes.
Okay. You're not grossed out by it. Yeah.
No.
All right. I'm a big fan. Anyway, let's keep it going here. Do you want to touch on a little bit on, because I think this game is really important when it comes to Serge Ibaka. You look at his price point, $8,300 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's $8,500. But what's interesting is like Jaren Jackson's only $300 less expensive. Julius Randle, $71, seems pretty cheap, but it is a tough matchup in the interior against the Lakers. We'll get there later. Kevin Love, $69. How are you approaching Ibaka at his price point across the industry?
Yeah, I think it's pretty fair, the price point. Like, I don't think he's underpriced. I don't think that he's really overpriced. And normally when that's the case for me, a lot comes down to ownership relative to the guys around him. But like looking at pricing on DraftKings, you do have Julius Randle for less, for example, is one that stands out. So I think Ibaka is fine, but I probably get them more on FanDuel than I would on DraftKings.
Okay. Anyone else for Toronto you want to get to?
No.
So on the other side, man, there we go again. 5-year-old taste buds. You guys don't get it. It's never going to work. It's never going to work. Insulting me saying I'm young because of my food choices. Never going to work. I'm just going to do it more. I'm going to go order off the kids menu at Friendly's tonight just to spite everybody. Get some cut up hot dogs on my plate with a fork. Screw you all. The Blazers, dude, Whiteside, I think Josh mentioned this morning. over the last 30 days, 1.49 fantasy points per minute. So when you look at like everyone that's getting significant minutes, like real players, he's 6th in the league over that span, Adam. It's been crazy how productive he's been. And we've been waiting for years to finally get consistent Hassan Whiteside minutes. It took a while for Terry Stotts to warm up to him and give him that consistent run, but it's here. 32 to 34 minutes a night with upside for more. No Marc Gasol on the other side. I still have a lot of respect for Ibaka as a defender, but the matchup's not as bad. Should be a competitive game. Melo, from a fantasy standpoint, low floor, decent production, high enough usage. Nothing special, but he's here getting a little bit of ownership. Bazemore's been talked about. And then you've got your Lillards, and I don't know if McCollum is going to play. For now, we assume he will. I believe that he wasn't on the injury report, and then he was put on the injury report as a game time call, game time decision now. So fortunately, it's a 7 p.m. start.
Yeah, I think that obviously the McCollum news is big, but if we assume that he's in, he's a reasonable option. But I think that the priorities for me from Portland are Whiteside and Lillard, just because Lillard is 3rd in the NBA in minutes played or minutes per game. So just like Lowry, you get a lot of playing time for Lillard. He's been having his minutes staggered with McCollum, so he's been a bit more productive basically since Karl-Anthony joined the team as well. Not a great matchup against Toronto, obviously, but anytime you're getting that kind of playing time and you can pencil someone in for 37, 38 minutes, it's obviously pretty appealing. Whiteside's around a 1.4 fantasy point per minute guy. Could play 33, 34 minutes here. So those two look like the best options for me. And then McCollum, if he's in, and Melo are both reasonable options.
Okay, top plays from the Portland side of the game.
Whiteside, Lillard.
Okay, would you prioritize Whiteside? I know I ask you this question a lot, but on a 6-game slate, I try and drill down on like where the top options are, because right now you've got Whiteside, last ownership update, DraftKings coming in around 11%, and then on FanDuel, Whiteside coming in at 13.5%. So for a 6-gamer, that's not really that popular. Actually, we got an ownership update about 30 minutes ago. Whiteside hasn't really changed much.
Yeah, he looks like one of the top centers for me today. Looks like I have him up there with Drummond, Davis, Adams as top options.
Okay. Cleveland and Detroit. Kevin Love was no disciplinary stuff. There was talk about like, oh, is he going to play? He's fine. He was getting a day of rest, so nothing to be worried about there. I'm going to plug him in for his normal allotment of minutes. The interesting spot here, though, is with Kevin Porter out. What are we doing with minutes for Dante Exum? Now, you know what? I think you could probably argue that even if we are going to give him significant minutes, he's not really viable. But I do want to break this entire team down anyway. I'm giving him a good amount. I'm giving around, I think I moved it to 27. He got all the backup minutes behind Porter last game and then played a ton once Porter went out. But we could start with him. You can start wherever you want with Cleveland going up against the Pistons. Right now, you've got the Cleveland Cavaliers, 3.5-point dogs, 219.5 total in Cleveland.
Yeah, pretty decent matchup for Cleveland. Detroit, not a particularly good defensive team. I think that Exum's kind of interesting just because he did play so many minutes after Porter went down. On one hand, he's never been a particularly great DFS player, but on the other hand, he's played 99 minutes now for Cleveland. He has a 22.1% usage rate. He's averaged 0.96 DraftKings points per minute. So he's been pretty productive in this role, and now you're getting more minutes for him. So, 4,300 on DraftKings is, I think, a pretty reasonable price point. Obviously, you'd like him more if he was cheaper, but I think that you have a decent chance of getting minutes into the mid-20s, which is basically what Porter had been playing when Love's in. So Exum's an okay value option, I think. Love looks pretty good. He'd been playing a bit more when he does play recently. I think that I'm a little bit more comfortable giving him, like 32 minutes instead of 29 or 30 like we were doing at times earlier this season. He's especially affordable at 7,500 on DraftKings. That looks pretty good. Tristan Thompson is questionable. If he's out, then you should get more rebounding for Love as well.
The whole Tristan Thompson thing, though, do you have a read on him today with this illness?
He's expected to play, just announced.
We got it now?
Expected to play.
Phenomenal producer you are. Let me tell. Oh, that literally dropped right now.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so Tristan Thompson expected to play. That makes life a little bit easier. But the thing too about this team, and you hit on a little bit of it, Adam. Alfonso McKinney is gone. They waived him yesterday, and Larry Nance is out. So there are going to be minutes available. With Kevin Love back, I would just expect Henson's minutes to drop down from 23 back to like, I don't know, 16 or so. How many are you giving Exum today?
I'll end up around 26 on Exum.
Okay. Yeah. So 26, 27, maybe 28. I don't know. Look, he's not a very good fantasy producer, so maybe it's a moot point, but it was kind of interesting that he literally is getting no ownership at all. 2%, coming in close to minimum salary on FanDuel. Far from a priority. I don't know if I'll have any of them at all, but if I do put him at 28 minutes, then I get a little bit of Dante Exum, which I think makes sense. Anything else for Cleveland?
Thompson's a secondary option for me. Like, he should play big minutes to match up with Andre Drummond, but at the same time, it's not like it's a good matchup for someone that's dependent on rebounding going against Andre Drummond. So minutes should be there, but what he does with those minutes obviously is a little bit of a concern.
Okay. On the opposite side of this one, you've got the Detroit Pistons. A lot of injuries for this team, man, and some of them relevant. Luke Kennard remains out. Reggie Jackson still isn't back. We've been hearing that he's close. Still hasn't been the case yet, though. Tony Snell is questionable, but he's going to play. Some of these seem pointless, but just trying to break down what the rotation could look like. Blake Griffin underwent surgery, and he's going to be out for a while. There was some word that could be a season-ending surgery. Markieff Morris with the foot injury is also out. So, I mean, there's a lot to digest here. I'm not sure how much of it is relevant, but one guy that always is, especially with Blake Griffin sideline, is Andre Drummond, Adam, going up against this Cleveland front court. Right now, you've got Drummond's ownership coming in on DraftKings at 18%. He's around top 10 at his position. On FanDuel, Drummond coming in at 24%, also probably 9th or 10th. Sorry, not at his position, on the slate overall.
Yeah, I think Drummond looks like one of the better plays on the board for me. Pretty solid matchup going against Cleveland. Obviously, Tristan Thompson is a good rebounder, but you have a size advantage for Drummond. It's not a spot that, I'm really concerned about him. Plays huge minutes, coming off of a 40-minute game against the Lakers. All of his rates across the board go up without Blake Griffin on the floor. So he just looks like an absolutely great option for me.
I really like him too. I've come around even more than I was this morning. I think it's going to be tough to get away from Drummond. The minutes in a competitive game, there's no reason they shouldn't be there. Oddly enough, foul trouble has come back into play for him recently, but that's certainly not something I'm worried about. Shooting has been a problem area of late. But again, these are all things that there's no reason to assume they'll continue. And you're talking about matchups with the Lakers, the Jazz, the Clippers, some pretty difficult spots there. And look, he's one of these guys that averages 2 steals and 2 blocks per game on top of 17.5 points and 16 rebounds, 2.6 assists. You'd be hard pressed to find, 5 guys that produce the type of numbers he does on a consistent basis when you're talking about someone that might only score 10 points, but could still give you 50 fantasy points any given night.
Yeah, monster upside because of the steals and blocks, like you said. And then, obviously he's capable of going out there grabbing 15, 20 rebounds in any matchup too. So, yeah, I think that normally, and I mean, the usage is still there. Like, he's a mid-20s usage guy.
Yep.
Normally when you're talking about players priced up around $10,000, you're looking closer to 30%, but he contributes so many other things that it's not a concern.
What else in Detroit stands out, if anything? I guess I have to ask you about a few of these guys. One of them being Sekou Doumbouya. Is that it? Doumbouya?
I think it's Doumbouya, yeah.
Doumbouya? I have a tough time with him. That pronunciation gets me. Bruce Brown is still cheap. I'm not a big fan of Brown. Derrick Rose, though, the minutes have been all over the map, but they appear once again to be trending upwards, which means they could start trending downwards tonight. I really don't know what to make of it, but a high-volume shooter, probably their best playmaker on the team. Where are you at outside of Drummond for Detroit?
I really like Rose just because the minutes have been trending up, like you said. He started the second half last game, played about 29 minutes. He's been lobbying for more playing time. Dwayne Casey has said it's up to the trainers and basically no. But even if you're going to get 27, 28 minutes from a mid $6,000 Derrick Rose in a good matchup, should get plenty of opportunities. Blake Griffin being out certainly helps. Overall this season, Rose has averaged about 1.17 DraftKings points per minute, so very productive when he plays. The salary hasn't really increased enough, so he's behind Drummond, but pretty clearly a top option for me. And then beyond that, you can look to Sekou Doumbouya, who has been playing big minutes recently with Griffin out, coming off of a 34-minute game against the Lakers. For the season, he's played 122 minutes total. He's averaged about 0.8 fantasy points per minute. That's at his price. That's it's not like breaking charts or anything, but it looks pretty decent.
So we had a question in chat from Jeremiah Johnson. He says, any worries about Drummond not playing or being traded? Alex said he had concerns whether he plays tonight. I think it's a fair point to bring up, but oh wow, Van Vliet now expected to miss extended time. But here's the thing. It's an early lock. Now, you could have something happen where you remember the Dion Waiters debacle back a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
So
yep.
You could have something like that happen, but it's very unlikely. And if anyone's unfamiliar with that situation, Dion Waiters, I was at that game actually in the DK club box watching people lose their minds. I didn't play that night because it was difficult driving there and everything. So I was kind of just a fly on the wall. But man, Waiters was like a popular play because everyone was out. Irving was out. I think Kevin Love was like the only player on that team that you knew who he was. I know you remember this.
Yeah, I remember.
And Dion Waiters is warming up, and then someone came up to him in a suit and grabbed him, and he walked off and never came back. And that was after lock, right? Because you still have like 11 minutes after 7 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that happened with Jordan Clarkson earlier this year. Not that he wasn't popular like Dion Waiters was, so it didn't have the same effect. But that was another one where it was like the 7 o'clock game, and the game locked, and then like 3 minutes after the game locked, it was like, oh, Jordan Clarkson was traded.
Yep. Yeah, IMAX just said something similar in chat. So it's always a thing, but I don't know where you're at, but it's not something that's going to really affect my decision making today.
No, I mean, the thing is, there's trade talks around Drummond, but am I just going to not play him for the next month and a half?
I was literally just going to say that.
Right.
It's February 6th is the deadline. So do we have that exact concern for 30 days leading up to it? Maybe, but it can't stop you from playing him all together. It's just not going to work.
Hollis Jefferson getting the start.
Sorry?
Hollis Jefferson is starting for Toronto.
Okay, so we've got Lowry, McCaw, Anunoby, Hollis Jefferson, and Ibaka. Anything change for you?
It just makes me feel more confident in Hollis Jefferson's minutes, a little less confident in Terrence Davis's, but nothing changes all that much.
Okay, Hollis Jefferson right now, you got him at like 14% on DraftKings at 4,800, and then on FanDuel around 8% at 49. I can only assume that number climbs with the next update.
Agreed.
Anything else in Detroit?
I don't think so.
All right, let's go to Brooklyn. Brooklyn and OKC. Danilo Gallinari is out tonight. We have a decent sample of him not playing to get a good idea of what we're working with. But a 216 total. Nets are 1-point favorites at home. Steven Adams chalk night is what we're dealing with. He is right now the highest projected owned player on DraftKings. And I think it's fair. We'll get to that in a moment. We'll start with Brooklyn because I don't think it's going to take very long. Not much has changed from my opinion earlier today. Brooklyn is actually one of the teams that I have the least amount of interest in. Throw the 22 minutes that I'm projecting for Caris LeVert into the mix, and I like them even less. What about you?
Yeah, same boat. LeVert obviously eats up some minutes, but also eats up usage, eats up playmaking. So that's, having him out there is not beneficial for the fantasy production of anyone else. Dinwiddie at 7,600 is reasonable, but I don't think that he's a priority for me. Same can be said for $6,000 Jared Allen on DraftKings, but not a particularly appealing team overall.
Yeah, Dinwiddie, I think I said the same thing. Like I see Dinwiddie as viable. Furthest thing for me from a priority. Jared Allen, though, he's coming in with a lot of ownership right now. 12th highest projected owned player on DraftKings on FanDuel on the entire slate at 5,500. Definitely getting less attention on DraftKings, but yeah, he's pretty popular on FanDuel right now, at least before the next update.
Yeah, and he's normally a better play on FanDuel than DraftKings anyway, because of the power forward eligibility.
All right, so I think we can talk OKC because we got a little time here to get to really dive into this one. I have to tell you, I don't know what ownership will look like, so this definitely will affect my opinion. But right now he's at 10%. That's Dennis Schroeder. I like Dennis Schroeder today. I mean, I expect him to get big minutes. Last time that he's been active and Danilo Gallinari's been out because they both missed a few games at the same time, or a couple. Schroeder got a lot of run. He has been a solid per minute guy in this situation. If you take, I know you obviously, it gets a little bit more complex than just taking Gallinari off the floor and putting Schroeder on it. But he is getting some of the minutes with the bench, which is nice coming off the bench. So he's not getting all of them alongside SGA and Chris Paul, although they will play alongside each other quite a bit tonight. But I think Schroeder's actually an interesting play here if his ownership stays low. And it's a matchup against a good enough Brooklyn defense, but also a team that plays at a top 10 pace. So with no Danilo Gallinari, I'm not opposed to Schroeder, and I think Adams is fine. But that ownership, man, is definitely up there, almost 30% tonight on Adams.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of that. I think that all of the guards actually look like pretty decent options.
Right.
They're all pretty comparably priced. So I have Chris Paul as my top option, followed by Schroeder and then SGA. But all just as above average plays for me. It is a pace-off spot, like you said. I would expect that you get all three of them in the closing lineup, which is obviously appealing. Probably around 32 minutes for Schroeder, probably around 33, 34 for Paul, and probably around 36 for SGA. So all those guys look pretty appealing at their points. And then Steven Adams, you're assuming gets more run because Nerlens Noel is out. I think it's a pretty reasonable assumption, but that in part is what's driving up the ownership. He's pretty inexpensive anyway. It's not a bad matchup against Brooklyn. So I think that Adams is a good play. I don't think that normally when you get really popular options, in the mid 6K range, unless there's like an injury that directs a lot of usage to them, like Chris Middleton when Giannis is out or something like that, you can still pivot away and get the other guys because there are so many good options around them normally. But as far as point per dollar projections go, I think Adams looks really good.
I get a lot of questions about Darius Baisley every time Gallinari's out, and I kind of give the same answer. If you think he's going to get the minutes, then okay, but like this guy to me has got to get 30 plus to have any confidence at all. I mean, if you were to just take Gallo off the floor, put Chris Paul on, he's played 257 minutes in that situation. He's a decent rebounder. He's got a double-digit rebounding rate. I'll give him that. But in this spot, 14% usage rate, 0.69 fantasy points per minute in like 257 minutes. If you want to put SGA on the floor with him with Gallo off, 324 minutes, 0.64 fantasy points per minute, usage rate of 13.7. The list goes on. You can't put him on the floor with all of these guards because you just don't get minutes. But the point I'm getting at mostly is if you're only getting 25 minutes from Darius Baisley, you're probably going to be underwhelmed even at a discounted price point.
Yeah, and even if you kind of look at the most favorable situation you can for Baisley, which is just taking Gallinari off the floor and not forcing.
Still bad.
Right. He's played 612 minutes with 0.67 DraftKings points per minute.
Nothing changes. Usage per minute, right. Nothing changes. Yeah. What about the rest of OKC? I think we touched on all of it, but just making sure we cover it because the Gallo news is kind of significant, especially on a small slate like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's pretty much those four guys, the starters minus Baisley, but I think that all four of them are quality options. Adams, obviously, you just want to be aware of the ownership. It's not to say that you shouldn't play Steven Adams. You just want to make sure that you're contrarian somewhere in any lineups that do happen because he'll be popular.
Okay. Hey, we're halfway through the show. Appreciate you sticking with us. You have until the 10th, by the way, of January, until the 10th to use the sign-up code, the promo code 2020 at awesemo.com to get 20 days of Awesemo Plus Platinum All Access membership for $20. $20 for 20 days. It's $1 a day. And thanks, Ghost Kicks. We appreciate that. Hit that like button while you're at it if you enjoy the show and you want to help support us. It really does do a lot for us. It's the easiest way to help us out. Use that sign-up code 2020, though, and get $20 or 20 days for $20. If you go to awesemo.com/join, what you'll see is at the bottom, all of our tools, videos on them, how to use them, why we use them, our best, most popular ones, the ones all developed by Alex Baker, Awesemo himself. And I also, if you're looking for a different plan, we got a million different ways to go. The express package for $3.95 a week. There's so many different ways, but really, this is one of the best things we've run. $20 for 20 days of Awesemo Plus All Access Platinum. You get everything, not including Fantasy Cruncher. That's an add-on, but it's ownership projections, player projections, all of our other tools, the lineup builder, top stack tool, boomer bust tool, all of our premium articles that these guys spend a lot of time on each day, and so much more. So use that sign-up code 2020 to get 20 days for $20. Or if you're looking to just make it happen, use the promo code New Year, one word. You get 20% off your Awesemo Plus Platinum yearly pass. That's $200 off. You have until July 10th to do it. All right. So a couple more days to go. 20% off, $200 off by using the sign-up code New Year if you want to bang it out all at once. So 2020 gets you 20 days for $20. New Year, one word, gets you $20 or 20%. That's $200 value off your Awesemo Plus Platinum yearly pass. Bing, bang, boom. Get that done today. Awesemo.com/join. And when you do, hit us up in the premium Slack chat. We will show you around. All right. Minnesota, Memphis. 3 to go here. 3 up, 3 down. Or 3 up, 3 to go. Minnesota Timberwolves are dogs, 3.5-point dogs on the road in Memphis, suggesting that Karl-Anthony Towns once again probably not going to play. It's a 228.5 total. I mentioned I've been liking the unders on these games, Adam. It doesn't work like clockwork, but since you and I last spoke, I rechecked the numbers. With Towns out now, since the 13th, I believe, of December, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now first in defensive rating and 29th in offensive rating. This isn't to say we don't like this game. I do think there are pieces for sure, but 228.5 seems a bit lofty for my expectations. Let's start with the Grizz.
Yeah, sorry. I think that Minnesota probably should be a little bit better offensively now that they have Wiggins back. But
Sure.
to your point, obviously missing Karl-Anthony Towns is a big change in terms of offense and defense. So it has been lower scoring over the stretch than I think we expected. Looking at the Memphis side, I think there's a lot of like reasonable secondary options that you can kind of use to fill out lineups, but nobody that really stands out as a great option or a huge priority for me. John Moran, playing around 30 minutes, his usage has been down a bit since coming back from injury. Valanciunas' price tag has come up, as has Jaren Jackson's. So there's I don't mind mixing those guys in. Same goes for Jay Crowder and Dylan Brooks, but nothing that looks really appealing to me from Memphis.
All right, Nathan Snow, what do you think the total should be, Laffy? I don't know. Look, I'm not pretending that I should be a bookmaker or that I am one. I just think 228.5 is pretty high for a team that without Towns has been really underwhelming. Adam makes a great point that Wiggins was out for some games as well. Okay, hold on.
Dante Exum.
Yeah. So first of all, CJ McCollum's in. Dante Exum is out. We need to circle back for a minute. Do you want to do it after this game, or should we do it now and then return to Memphis, Minnesota?
We can just do it now.
All right, let's do it now. We'll come back because we didn't really get started much on this game anyway. So Exam is out. People are calling him Exam. I mean, come on. No, this is an easy one. It's a 4-letter name. Matthew says Exum out. Who cares? Well, here's why it actually does have some relevance. It's a small slate. Kevin Porter Jr. is out, and he had been getting significant run. So basically, if you looked at last game, outside of a couple minutes towards the end, it was a 14-point game, only a couple minutes left. Porter and Exum got all the minutes at the 3. Like, he was the direct backup for Kevin Porter. So these are the two guys that, reasonable to assume they would have played almost 48 minutes at that position combined. And now they're both out. And Alfonso McKinney is also waived from the team.
Yeah, they're short on bodies now. It's not that they have good bodies, left, but there's definitely minutes to be had without McKinney, Exum, or Porter. So, in that last game, you saw 23 minutes for Brendon Knight. I hate rostering Brendon Knight, but I think that he probably gets into the mid-20s at least in minutes. You should get more run for Delly, who played 3 minutes or 4 minutes last game. But you have a $3,200 Brendon Knight now. If you give him 24 minutes, I think that it's unlikely that he breaks the slate or does anything great. But as far as being able to get you a decent, or just as far as being a decent value, I think the minutes should be there for him.
Do you think Dwayne Wade's younger stepbrother is in play?
He should play, I would think. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how many minutes, but he should get on the floor.
Okay. It's very funny though. He's point guard eligible on DraftKings and power forward on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'll say I think he's bigger.
He's a forward. Yeah, Josh mentioned today he's 6'9".
Right.
But they have him listed at point guard on DraftKings. I have to wonder though, how many minutes, and maybe you guys don't want to hear this, but everyone's talking about playing Kevin Knox. So forgive me if I'm going to throw another bad player into the mix. Brendon Knight might get a lot of minutes today.
Yeah, I think he at least gets into the mid-20s.
It's an interesting spot, man. It really is. I think you could get high 20s, not maybe 30 from him. It's hard to say, but I don't know. You're down Porter, you're down Exum, McKinney waived, Love is back, Nance is out, so you can't exactly throw guys from the 4 to the 3. I don't know. Does anything change for you in terms of your liking for Cleveland? Because it's still a overall bad team.
No, I still like Love. I think that I'll get to some night just kind of hoping for the best, but it doesn't throw anyone in that I think it is like a lock or anything like that. You probably get more minutes for Darius Garland and for Colin Sexton as well.
Okay.
Did you say Dean Wade was Dwayne Wade's brother?
What did you say?
Did you say Dean Wade is Dwayne Wade's brother earlier?
I said younger step brother.
Oh, okay.
But you're literally just catching on to this now. That's why I started laughing, because you were just like, yeah, I think he'll get some minutes. Did you have to Google it?
Huh?
Did you have to Google it?
Yeah. I was looking up to see if that was true.
That's awesome. He's white.
Yeah, I see that. That was my first clue that you were not correct.
That's why I tried to set it up with younger step brother. Strange things happen. Oh man, that's good stuff. All right, let's get back to Minnesota and Memphis. The Grizzlies. Why don't you just recap your takes on Memphis? We have a little bit of time here, just since we kind of went backwards here with.
There was nothing really interesting about them to me. I think that there's a lot of guys that their salaries are reasonable plays that can kind of fill out a lineup, but nothing looks like a priority for me. John Moran should play around 30 minutes. He's in that same price range as all the Oklahoma City guys, guards though. So I prefer them. Valanciunas and Jackson's salaries have come up a little bit. So kind of just mixing these guys into some lineups, but nothing that's a priority for me.
Okay. Dude, they're loving this Google thing right now. That's awesome. I would love for John Morant to be a little bit more reliable. Do you have any thoughts though on the fact that this dude, and it's a small sample, it's something I really don't want to read into that much, but over the past couple of weeks, his usage has fallen off a cliff, man.
Yeah, basically ever since he came back from his injury, it's been down.
Yeah.
Prior to the injury, he was up around 30%. Since coming back, he's at 23.1%. He's averaged 0.94 DraftKings points per minute. I think that at the very least, it's concerning because, we've got about a month of him now playing and not being as high usage of a guy. On the other hand, by the end of the season, I would expect him to be back to being a really high usage guy. So you don't want to look into it too much, but it is at least worth mentioning.
You would think on this specific team that he would be like a 30% usage guy, even as a rookie.
Right. Which he was at the beginning of the year.
I know. He was 20, I think like 29.5% or something crazy. You're right. Like you said, over his last 6 games too, 23% usage. It's very strange. He's still north of a fantasy point per minute, but like I really want to play him in this spot. I just don't see it happening. You want to talk about Minnesota?
Yeah, I think that Wiggins in particular looks really good. Memphis, faster team, doesn't play much defense. Wiggins this season without Towns on the floor has averaged 1.05 DraftKings points per minute. But even on top of the average per minute production, you just get a really high ceiling when you're talking about someone who does have about a 30% usage rate and should play pretty big minutes against Memphis. Only played about 30 minutes last game, but I would expect that number to go up. So he looks like the best option for Minnesota to me. Secondary options in Gorgie Jang, in Covington, in Napier, but the risk with Napier is that you're still not really seeing him play alongside Teague, so he's going to be at risk of losing minutes there. Robert Covington, obviously not a particularly high usage guy, no matter who's on the floor. You're kind of just hoping for defensive stats and him to shoot well from 3.
Yeah, I do like Wiggins. I think the price point on him is really friendly. It's an 8 p.m. game, but I think we have a pretty good indication of what the injury news is going to look like here, right? Like, don't we have to continue to assume that Towns is out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm making that assumption. They don't really have any incentive to rush him back or to bring him back, in any sort of hurry. So I'm treating it like he's out until he's on the floor.
Okay. Top play for Minnesota, Wiggins.
Yeah.
Anybody else that you would say is very solid? Is the deflection king Robert Covington someone that you really like?
Really like? No. I think that he's fine. Him and Jang both look like pretty like okay options at their salaries, but there's a lot of guys that I like more.
Okay.
Wiggins looks like a guy that I'll actually get a lot of.
Should we keep it rolling here?
Yeah.
Phoenix, Sacramento, another high total game, another one with quite a bit of injuries. 226 total. Suns are 7-point favorites. I said to Josh today, how crazy is the NBA in 2019, 2020 that the Kings are 11.5-point favorites against the Warriors yesterday, and now they're 7-point dogs to the Suns.
That's pretty impressive.
Pretty wild, right? I mean, I know there's injuries and such, but still, nothing upside. Up is down, down is up. I don't know what to make of things anymore, but we do have a lot to talk about in this game. And I think Phoenix, Josh made a pretty salient point on the strategy show. Not even a point, just an observation that, like, when it comes to Phoenix, you would think that a lot of these guys would be really spectacular plays today, especially given that they have the second highest total on the slate behind only the Lakers. But all of their prices seem to be at levels where you're like, okay, yeah, they're all right, but do I love DeAndre Ayton at 8,200? Do I love Kelly Oubre despite the minutes at 7,300? How are you reading this Suns team against the Kings? It's
a slower Sacramento team, so that's obviously not appealing either. The main guys all look like they kind of look like Memphis to me, where they're not overpriced, they're not underpriced, so they're not going to be like core guys for me. And it wouldn't be surprising to see like a good game from Booker or from Oubre or Rubio, but none of them are priced that appealing. Like, you have Rubio more expensive than all of the Oklahoma City guards, more expensive than Andrew Wiggins, who we just talked about. Booker is the same, is a little bit more expensive than Kyle Lowry, who we obviously really like. So there's just nothing from Phoenix that looks like a core play for me because of their salaries, not because I dislike the matchup or the players themselves or anything like that. Yeah, I do think Booker's kind of in a fascinating spot because his ownership has actually come down throughout the day. He's 8,800 on DraftKings, but he's coming in at 11% ownership, which, given the fact that he's playing huge minutes and he kind of almost like took himself out of the offense at times in an odd way, just, wasn't nearly as involved as you would expect for somebody like Devin Booker, who is
the now and the future of this team. Yes, him not Ayton, even though I like Ayton, but I mean, Devin Booker's a special player. Now you take his last 6 games, for example, and things have changed. I mean, 1.34 fantasy points per minute, 35% usage rate, 32% assist rate. He's playing like a different play. He's playing like last year's Devin Booker when Ricky Rubio wasn't there and Isaiah Cannon wasn't in the lineup anymore. Yeah, that actually made a difference. He definitely seems a lot more aggressive recently, which is worth noting. But you make a good point too, that Sacramento does play at a slow pace. It's a big time pace down spot. But I think Booker's a pretty interesting play today.
Yeah, it's tough for me to pay for him because I think that he is priced for that increase in usage that you were talking about.
Yeah, it is baked into his salary. You're right.
Yeah, and when you just compare him, like there's a lot of good high upside mid-range guards today. Kyle Lowry is, basically the same price as Booker, and I like him a lot more. So it's still tough for me to really prioritize him just because of his salary relative to the others.
Yeah, and it's fair. I do think though with the ownership being, I guess the ownership makes sense though. So I like him, don't love him, but for Phoenix, he would actually be the guy I like most. Who do you like most for the Suns?
I probably Booker, but it's between him, Ayton, Rubio, and Oubre. I think that they're all pretty comparable at their salaries as far as how I view them as a play.
All right, let's flip to the other side of this one. Talk about the Kings. A lot of injuries here, and that's going to influence a lot on this slate for sure. So right now you've got no Bogdanović. He's officially out. And then Holmes and Bagley were doubtful unless recently they were officially ruled out. I don't know. I don't think they were. No. So, I mean, obviously we're going to assume that those guys are out. So let's assume no Holmes, no Bogdanović, and no Bagley. It throws someone like Harry Giles into the mix. We'll get to the big name guys in a moment, but let's spend a second on him. Since the start of last season, right? Since the start of last year, he's played 105 minutes with Bagley and Holmes off, right? Holmes wasn't there last year, but Bagley and Holmes off, and with Fox and Buddy Hield on the floor. Assuming he starts, and we're taking these numbers, 105 minutes there, 22.5% usage rate, and 1.11 fantasy points per minute. I bring that up because if you look at his career numbers, not with anyone on or off, just his career numbers, 23.5% usage, right? Not bad. And per minute production is 1.1 or 1.07. So even playing alongside them, very small sample, he has still been able to produce. The question is, how many minutes do we get for Giles? If you get even, 23, 24 from him, he's got to be the best value play on the slate.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like you said, he's not the best NBA player, but he is productive on a per minute basis when he gets the
evidenced by playing 10 minutes a game. Yeah.
Right. So, I think that at basically the minimum salary, and then also on DraftKings, he has power forward eligibility, which makes it so you're not even, locking down a center spot. You can still get to Drummond and Adams and whoever else you like the position. So, I think that he's a good option. He produces at a high enough rate where if you get more minutes than you're expecting, he could be completely necessary. But you can also be kind of, even if he undershoots the minutes that we're expecting and doesn't get to 23 or 24, he still probably isn't going to kill you with that salary.
What's interesting about this matchup is we've seen on the other side, we've seen Ayton and Baines starting together and just like this jumbo front court. You have Dwayne Dedmon, who wants to be traded. He's been catching DNP-CDs since Christmas. And I don't know, like Caleb Swanigan, is he still on the roster?
I think it's Wenyen Gabriel.
It is, right. So is Swanigan not on the roster?
I think he is. He just
okay. So
yeah, he played 7 minutes last game.
Okay, so do you think Dedmon plays? And I ask this because we've seen Bjelica get like significant backup 5 minutes, and then Bagley returned, And then Bagley got hurt again. And then Bjelica stopped seeing, Luke Walton stopped giving him his backup center minutes. If you think he's going to get some today, you're probably projecting him for a lot of minutes. And his ownership right now, I was surprised to see how low it was. And then with the most recent update, it shot through the roof.
On Bjelica or on Dedmon?
On Bjelica.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I don't think Bjelica plays backup center. He certainly could. My total guess is that one of the other guys gets the backup center minutes. But maybe you still get, some minutes there. Like, maybe you get like 24 for Giles, 12 for one of, any of the backup bigs. And then the rest for Bjelica. So, I do think that he, at the very least, you should get, around 30 minutes for him at 5,300, which is fine anyway. And then it has the upside to be even more productive.
Right. Yeah, it's tough because, like, first of all, I don't even know if Giles will play 24 minutes. Neither of us really have any clue.
Yeah, I mean, they could start Dedmon for all we know.
If they do, are you locking Dedmon in?
I'm playing a bunch of whoever is starting at center. The nice thing is that on DraftKings, Giles is $100 more than Dedmon, so it'll be a pretty easy swap as long as Giles is at center or at utility.
For sure. Would you have any interest in playing Giles and Dedmon in the same lineup, given how cheap they are, and they're at really like the most productive position for value in fantasy basketball?
It's
a tough question.
It's tough because, like, right now I have no confidence that Dedmon even plays.
Right. Oh no, no question. Yeah.
Like, if we got news right now that Dedmon's starting, then I would assume Giles is the backup, and you're getting close to 48 minutes. So, like, between the two of them, so it would be okay. But as of right now, I'm just gonna play one.
Like, for all we know, Giles could play 24 minutes. Bjelica could play 10 minutes backing him up, and then like Swanigan and Gabriel could play the remaining 14. Right. I have no idea. What are you doing with De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield and the rest of this team? Trevor Ariza coming off a very solid effort, but whenever Trevor Ariza is popular, I generally want to have nothing to do with him. He's right now he's getting a lot of ownership.
Yeah, so he looks like a pretty decent point per dollar option, Ariza that is, but you're still talking about a low usage guy that at high ownership.
The minutes should be there. I'll give him that. He should play around 32 minutes.
Yeah. The minutes should be there. The salary is affordable. You're just still talking about Trevor Ariza also. Exactly. And you're not talking about high usage guys being out for Sacramento.
But you are talking about high owned Trevor Ariza, which makes it even more terrifying.
Also, yeah, good point there too. So yeah, I think Ariza's fine. But Fox and Hield both look good to me too. The salaries are affordable on both guys. That's pretty much where most of the usage should go in this offense. Fox coming off of a 30-minute game, but he could have played more. The game was a blowout until the end, so he didn't get his full run. Same goes for Hield. So I think both of those guys, could get more. We saw 39 minutes 2 games ago for Hield, 36 without the final 4.5 minutes of the game for Hield yesterday. So I think you probably get like 34 minutes from Fox in a competitive game. Probably get up around 38 from Hield.
Okay. And hey, you guys are awesome, by the way. You got us over 3,000 live watching right now on the Deeper Dive. It's the first time we've done it on the Deeper Dive. Appreciate everyone for hanging out. Above 3,000 on a Tuesday night. Awesome stuff. Let's close it out here. We don't need a lot of time on this game. Lakers and New York Knicks. We will certainly cover everything, though. I think LeBron plays. He's got an illness. I'm not worried about it. Anthony Davis is probable. Avery Bradley's in. Hopefully that shuts up everyone. Sorry, I shouldn't say silences all of the Rajon Rondo talk. For me, it's just Davis and LeBron for the Lakers.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. If LeBron sits, then you're going to want to swap to some Rondo. And then you'll get, more minutes for some of the wings too. But assuming LeBron's in, it's basically LeBron and Davis, which is pretty much always the case. I prefer LeBron by a little bit just because he is a little bit better per minute producer. They normally play around, the same minutes. But I think that they're both good options. Obviously, if LeBron's in. If LeBron's out, then also Davis becomes a lot better. And LeBron is more expensive than Davis on DraftKings, so you can it'll be easy to swap from LeBron to Davis if you need to.
Okay. I'm assuming you don't have anything else from the Lakers, right?
No.
Okay. So the New York Knicks, Marcus Morris is out. Or sorry, doubtful. And this is just such a brutal spot. The only guy I really think we need to talk about, if you have anyone else, feel free. We've got about a minute here. Would be Julius Randle. Tough spot, but I had mentioned the one thing I like is that he went from taking 5% threes 2 years ago to like 27% threes. Less of his shots are coming around the basket, which I usually don't like, but in this spot, it might benefit him against the tough interior defense with the Lakers. And he's really just taking a lot of threes, surprisingly, and 35% of shots around the basket. It makes for a good player who can pass and rebound, but it's still a tough spot. Close us out with the Knicks.
Yeah, and also for Randle, without Morris on the floor this year, a 30% usage rate, 1.22 DraftKings points per minute. So I think he looks good. It is a tough matchup, but I think that the salary is affordable, and assuming the Knicks can hang in this game, he's probably a big reason why, and the minutes should be there. Kevin Knox is 3,100. I expect 25, 26 minutes. I don't expect him to be overly productive. He's averaged 0.82 DraftKings points per minute without Morris, but he's dirt cheap. So if you get to some of him, that's fine.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us. Stick around. Live Before Locks coming up next. Appreciate you guys hanging out as always. Before you leave, hit that thumbs up if you want to help support us here on the Deeper Dive. Adam and I'll be back with you tomorrow. Same time, same place, same wonderful show. Remember, check out Super Draft. Download the app or go to superdraft.io. Get $20 in super cash by depositing $100 or more. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Good luck tonight. Catch you soon.
live before lock, January 7th, 2020, brought to you by Super Draft. Don't adjust those dials. Don't adjust those giles either for today.
Oh, wow. Like it's in your head already.
Apparently
My boy,
it is.
He's occupying space in your head like Embiid on Drummond.
It is Tuesday, but I am Josh Engelman. I am here joined by Fast Eddie Fear back in the States. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you
nice
back.
It's nice of you to notice. I've been back like 5 days, done a couple shows, but it's
Back
cool.
in the States for the first time for me. The last time I talked to you, you were in a bed in Mexico.
Sí, señor. Es verdad.
So Super Draft is the live before lock sponsor. I want to make sure that I touch on these guys right out of the gate. You can say goodbye to salary restrictions and look at what could be the future of DFS. They have a unique setup where you get a multiplier. So let's just say that Anthony Davis is, I'm making these numbers up, Anthony Davis's multiplier is 1.1. You might be able to get Rajon Rondo at a significantly higher multiplier. So you could roster whoever you want, but you get a significant bonus to someone that would in theory be a lower salary guy. Now, if you want to try Super Draft out, go to superdraft.io, use the promo code AWESEMO when you sign up. You can get a free $20 in Super Cash with your first deposit of $100 or more. They've got an app in your app store, so you can download that as well. There are no limits, just more winning. So check out Super Draft. Eddie, are we talking grape jelly sandwiches right now, or are we diving into this?
No, it was someone mentioned to me that you had an interesting colloquy, a dialogue, if you will, earlier today about breakfast foods. And specifically, I was supposed to ask about not French toast and jelly. It's
grilled cheese,
grilled cheese and jelly. And I asked you, and you were familiar with either a croque monsieur, which is the proper name, or a Monte Cristo.
I did say bechamel to you offline. Meant more name.
No,
it is
that
more
was
name,
very
correct?
nice. See, is verdad. But the way that delicious confection is created is it's basically this fried turkey, ham, and 3 cheese sandwich thing that they then put powdered sugar on top of, and ranks, I would think, in the most unhealthy things a human person could consume. But the traditional topping for that is sort of a raspberry preserve. And if you've ever gotten this wondrous, but often very expensive, and it's a bit shishi frou-frou, but it's one of these things. It's a big ass sandwich, and it often comes with sort of a dunking tray of raspberry preserves. It's the traditional topping. So this is not far removed from grape jelly on your grilled cheese.
I had no idea that was a traditional topping for it. I have never had that experience. I have.
It's very good.
I have eaten those sandwiches quite a bit. They are very heavy, very rich, very delicious.
I'm getting like my heart palpitations.
That really does change up the entire flavor profile, though.
It's really good.
I would have
the first time
for the better.
The first time I got it, I'm like, what do I do with the jam?
You give this with a spoon, like applesauce?
Get it, or you can put some on it, or like I just grab the thing like again, it's the size of a softball, and you're like, I mean, it's a ridiculous sandwich, but I can get behind. I've never specifically had the grape jelly on the grilled cheese, but I've had that, and it's wondrous. I am told the other half of this conversation is eggs and ketchup, and I have no idea why you would do that to eggs. Ketchup is not a team player.
No.
Okay, ketchup is a concealer. Ketchup is like, the makeup your girlfriend wears after she hasn't washed her face in too long. Okay, ketchup is not a team player. Whatever you eat with ketchup tastes like ketchup.
Yes.
There's
a reason you put ketchup on French fries, because they're just potatoes.
Right, and if you have great French fries,
you don't want ketchup.
Ketchup is not where you go. You can talk to me about some vinegar.
A little garlic aioli.
Oh my God, a little chev. A little garlic aioli is delicious. Or you look at our friends north of the border, mayonnaise.
Yes.
Also, shout out Pulp Fiction. Vincent Vega will tell you about the mayonnaise on your French fries. But ketchup, a fine condiment. I do not wish to disparage the excellent history and the provenance of ketchup on food, but I do think when it comes to the finer things in life, such as succulently prepared eggs, you would be better served to look elsewhere.
So I led off this show with a bit of a slip and told you guys to not adjust your Giles. Fast Eddie Fear. Same question as usual. If you're playing one person today, or you really need to slam dunk someone, are you adjusting your Giles?
Like he was in the contention when we got here, and I'm going to the first time today look at our ownership rankings because I want to give a good answer to this question. So I'm going to look for the first time. I'm loading our ownership rankings to see what number we have. HG3,
I think
Garnett.
that you will think it's too low.
It's a little too low. It's harder than I would have expected. But again, it's hard for people to. We live in an algorithm world at this point, so people can just look at how productive a player is and then throw some minutes at him and be like, hey, that guy scores more than his salary. And it would be tough for any modern created algorithm not using an abacus to not, spit out Harry Giles at some point getting over 22 minutes, looking at a pretty brilliant play in a strong matchup. I'm a big Harry Giles fan out of college. The question here will obviously be the minutes.
Yes.
They've been keeping him in that 12, 14, 16 range recently. They really brought him back slowly from his injuries, has sat out preseason, summer league, all manner of things. He's great. I like him. He is
He's old school.
He really is. His ceiling game is very Kevin Garnett like. That's not going to happen. But I'm a big fan of Harry Giles. I've been talking about him for a while. So disappointed I can't play tonight when Harry Giles is an excellent play. Because like me some HG3, like Harry Giles. I will look at this ownership and give you my play of the day. Please, some moment here. Let's see what we got. I'm gonna take based on the ownership I'm looking at here, and there are several excellent plays today. Some contenders for this conversation. I think would be Kyle Lowry, who I would want more of than that number. That number looks very significant. We only have him as the 6th highest owned guy. That not an illogical precept. $8,700 for Kyle Lowry is going to make you feel a little bit disquieted, perhaps a bit nauseated. I'd think about Chris Paul. That ownership is up there, so that doesn't seem that much of an edge. I'm going to want to get on top of the Andre Drummond number. I really like my boy Dre in this spot. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of matchup with the Cavs. I'm a big fan of the matchup with Tristan Thompson, where he's had multiple 2020s in the past, if memory serves. I'm a big fan of no Blake, no Kennard. Big fan of, the game staying closer without those guys. The last time they played, this is only their second meeting this year. We have a closeout, by the way. This is the finale for the Suns and the Kings. That's it. Final game. 4th time. We're all done. Played on opening night. Final meeting today. Drummond was on 5x5 watch in that game. I'm a big fan of the spot. And a lot of the other centers, I'll probably come in under on Steven Adams. He projects very nicely. Highest owned player on the slate's a little more praise than I would like to heap on him. I'm a little more excited about Chris Paul in that matchup. But I like Andre Drummond. I'm kind of anchoring with Andre Drummond at this point. So I'll go with Andre Drummond as the guy I would get over. He's been my number one mention guy of the day several times this year, and I don't think has let me down yet in some ridiculous spots. And we have met 17% ownership. I'd be closer to double that. I'd be around 30, 35 or something. I'm a pretty big fan of Andre Drummond. The price is very tolerable, especially on DraftKings, and kind of hard to fill spot. So like me some Dre.
We got a couple super chats there
already
moving through. So thank you very much to Gannon. Jokic helped me out as well, so I hope that it helped you out yesterday. CLA, sorry, brother. The elephant in the room has been addressed ad nauseum in this industry. This isn't the spot.
Oh, that's we're not doing that.
$10,
We're not doing that till 7. We're not doing that till 7 at least. I will happily comment if you wish to at that time, or you're the boss here. So.
Nothing left to say at this point. And then Overdrive Automotive Center with the big time super chat. Yo, Eddie, you are the GOAT. Appreciate all you do. Favorite pay up option tonight?
I guess Andre Drummond. I mean, I just went there.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that counts as a pay up option.
Yeah.
Most of the other ones appear to be at an ownership level roughly commensurate with how much I like them. I think it's important to have a LeBron might not play plan. I got about 2-1 that he plays. I think he suits up for this one. I think that's likely, but there's obviously some chance he doesn't, and that's going to make things pretty exciting for a number of other guys on the slate. So reload my notes here. But But I will simply answer with Drummond. I apologize. You should get a free question. So follow up with like a 5-cent super chat, and we'll remember that you put in the nice one and give you, because your question was answered as you were asking it, and I feel like we robbed you there for a little bit. But yeah, it's I think important to have that plan there. So I lament the fact that Drummond is playing so much previous to Anthony Davis, because certainly that's something I would want to look at doing and have more interest, obviously, in other members of that Laker team in the event that LeBron should sit. So locking up that much salary that early in the slate, if you're playing on a non-late swap site, is or even on a late swap site, either way, is a little bit lamentable. But I think is worth a shout out on, say, FanDuel, where this is more relevant. Power forward there is really interesting, because you have the aforementioned Harry Giles. You have Serge Ibaka, who I'm also a pretty big fan of at that FanDuel price. DK are obviously starting to price out the ceiling a little bit, but Randle against on Marcus Morris matchup, obviously nightmarish. I'm probably more intrigued by Kevin Love than other people. There's that price has come pretty far down. I mean, he's under 7K. He has obviously been all over the place, but there's always a pretty decent upside there. And this is an example of one of the times where there's a narrative, in this case, him being pissed that I don't know what it does. I would say if you asked me to mathematically quantify it, it wouldn't change my projection for him, but it would lower the floor and raise the ceiling. Yeah. And by that, I mean, I'm not surprised if he only plays 20 minutes and, throws the ball at Colin Sexton, 100 miles an hour. And I wouldn't be surprised if he plays angry and goes out there and gets his and says, hey, trade for me, other teams. So,
okay. So two things. We got one more super chat, but we did get a message from Overdrive Automotive Center with the follow-up question. Favorite player for DK Cash other than Drummond? That'd be Harry Giles, right?
Oh, it might be Giles. Cash.
Giles for me.
It's probably... Yeah, it would be Giles for me because of the price, but not by that much over Kyle Lowry. I have Kyle Lowry projected for 50.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what you and Alex have been projected for offhand. I have Kyle Lowry projected for 50. This matchup is underrated. This defense has been poor all year, and since we've put Carmelo in, it's gotten, absolutely delicious. It's kind of amusing. This is the wrap-up of this set for the year. Toronto and Portland already played. So this being the second and final regular season meeting between cross-conference teams. And in the former game, Lowry was out with an injury and Ibaka was out with an injury. So the entire team, like, I went back as I do every day, and I try to watch. Sometimes I get to the entire game or the gameplay sections of the game. I have a utility I can forward through all the commercials and whatever, so I can see it in 48 minutes or less if I speed it up. But I try to watch lots of the segments of the game and watch some of the matchups and look at the history and look at my notes and stuff. And I went back to watch this game, and it was pretty funny because the 5 players who started for Toronto in that game, the only one who is active is Mike Miller, who played 7 minutes. So there was not a lot to take away, considering Gasol, Van Vliet, Siakam, Powell, all not playing. So that wasn't a terribly useful industry. But it would be worth pointing out that in that game, minus several people, against this very poor Portland defense, you had massive games, 50 pluses out of both Van Vliet and Siakam. And I would expect this. I really like pretty much any Raptor you can put your hands on tonight. I don't hate Pat McCaw, and that's weird because I'm not a fan of getting too much Pat McCaw in my life because he's challenged as a fantasy player. But dude's going to have to play a lot of minutes at this point. I really like OG Anunoby. I think he's going to go under-owned. I think this is a spot he could be outstanding. Obviously, like Rondé, now that he's starting, somewhat of the minutes floor has evaporated there. More on FanDuel being a fan of TD, Terrence Davis, not to be confused with the Broncos running back. But I really like those guys. But it is hard to see how Kyle Lowry, in what I project to be a reasonably close game, is not going to playing his oodles and oodles of minutes. It'd be hard to see him not get me 40. And I do think, getting the 60 or 65 out of him that is rarely in the tank. This is about as good of a spot as you're going to get for getting it. He is one of the players in the NBA who is most too geared in that when there are other guys not there, his shit comes out. I mean, I don't know how many times last year I said Kyle Lowry with or without Kawhi Leonard. but it was constant. And it was a real critical thing for winning money last year. If you played Kyle Lowry last year, every time Kawhi Leonard sat, you did very well last year on at least those 18 days or whatever the hell I'm talking about there. Because that is really a thing. And again, now you've got, Terrence Davis and Pat McCaw and OG Anunoby, and these are not guys who are going to run out and dominate the world. And even Serge Ibaka, not necessarily. I think this is a spot where he really steps up, and I'm absolutely fine getting there. But you could get one hell of a Kyle Lowry game here. So pretty big fan of his even in cash. But I will slightly cede towards Harry Giles, although I feel like I'm a little bit of a homer in this. I try to be objective. I'd be really excited to roster Harry Giles. I won't lie. I made my placeholder lineups for tonight and went, sweet, Giles, and then went back and started looking at everything else. So,
circling back to Sam Snyder's super chat, best FanDuel value plays under 4K. I can tell you who I have in my player pool. That would be Terrence Davis, Trevor Ariza, Kevin Knox, and Harry Giles. Those are the only 4 guys I have sub 4K. So thank you, Samuel Snyder.
Counting GPPs? That's tournaments. You said your player pool, so that's an asinine question. I would definitely have some Brendon Knight at minimum price.
Okay. I think that is a reasonable stance to take, given the lack of Dante Exum.
Yeah, people were, sort of slathering on Dante Exum earlier today, and I presume the majority of the time vacated by apparently he's just ill, which is good. Whenever I see Dante Exum out, I presume he tore something off the bone. So shout out to that guy who's brilliant, by the way, player coming up and just has not been able to stay healthy forever.
Yeah. That dude is broken permanently.
Yeah, he's full Mr. Glass style.
He's way more broken than people think Anthony Davis is.
Oh yeah. Anthony Davis gets so much more crap than he deserves. Like I will admit, Anthony Davis going to the locker room is a ridiculous thing. I really should look this up because I've postulated this on the show many times. I'm fairly sure Anthony Davis has the most locker game trips since he entered the league. I would be fairly surprised if there is a player who has gone from the court due to injury to a locker room more frequently than Anthony Davis since he entered the league. I don't even know who I would throw in there as a consideration for a guy who.
I'd be shocked if it wasn't him.
Yeah, like it happens with a staggering regularity.
Yeah.
But he gets out there and plays a significant number of times. But so people were full excited by Dante Exum today.
Yeah.
And there was a reasonable, he basically came in for Kevin Porter and played massive minutes, and Sans Porter in the second half. And again, Porter, we had Saturday and Sunday were excellent shows. I hope you were there with us. We had some big wins, and they were a couple of my highest percentage shows ever with getting them right and getting them wrong.
Nice.
And I was a giant fan of, like, the only thing I got wrong on Sunday, almost literally, I had like 2 wrongs and 48 rights. It was one of those crazy shows. Was I really like Kevin Porter Jr. And I went in specifically and I said I think he plays 33 or 34 minutes, even though everyone else had him projected at like 28, and he played 16 and a half in the first half, and didn't score that much, at like 11 in the first half, and then got injured very shortly into the second half, and Dante Exum came in and basically played 15 minutes straight or what have you. And so there was a chance that you were going to get 30, 32 minutes. Now, Dante Exum has been very productive in this most recent, very limited role with the Cavs, but he has been a historically anemic fantasy player.
Yeah. I also wouldn't have expected them to just let this dude rip. He's made out of tissue paper.
And back to back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Cavs are Sunday, obviously. I'm saying I got confused for a sec. They are not on back to back.
Even still.
In the same week, he may not be able to play again, but no, it's but he is historically a far worse fantasy player than Brendon Knight. I will look it up. I'm going to guess in their careers, Brendon Knight, and again, Brendon Knight's been around for a while and has had different roles with different teams. So, and the same thing with Dante Exum. So, like, this is not apples for apples, but there's going to be like a 0.2 or 0.25 difference between these guys. Dante Exum, I would be shocked if it averages like 0.7 fantasy points per minute in his career. And Brendon Knight's going to be somewhere closer to 0.9. Dante Exum in his career is 0.65. Okay, that's obviously not good. That's well below average. 0.87. Okay, so that's not out of this world. And Brendon Knight's going to be somewhere 6'5". People were going, full I don't think he would have been more than like 5, 8, 10% owned, but I think there would have been some reasonably significant ownership on Dante Exum. I'm more excited to get the 28 minutes I thought I was going to get out of Dante Exum out of Brendon Knight, and he's going to be even lower owned, especially if we don't get a lineup sometime soon. So, I would have some Brendon Knight, not a super amount, but depending on when that lineup hits, he's going to be yon 1-2% owned, and I'd have 5, 8, 10% and feel just fine about it. And what's a pretty good matchup actually against Detroit.
Caden Mitchell's super chat, and I think this is an interesting question. With Sekou, Terrence Davis, and Garland all minimum priced or $11 on Yahoo, is Harry Giles necessary?
Sekou, Terrence Davis, and Darius Garland.
Yeah.
Those are the three. Is he necessary? I'm trying to remember the exact roster construction. It's 2-2-2. Oh no, it's point. It's the 8-man with the right. So I have that utility. Is Harry Giles a center or a forward?
I have no idea
on Yahoo. So it's
going
to change these things a lot.
Necessary, no, but
there's no chance he's a must play because he's going to be 40-50% owned, and it's still Harry Giles, and there's a number of ways in which he can fail, including just playing 15 or 16 minutes. It is not weird for them to start Dedmon, play him 30 minutes, and keep him in his role, or start Dedmon,
Darius Garland is going to play 30+ minutes today.
Right. He's far from necessary would be my answer to that question. And it's worth pointing out for a number of reasons, even though it represents a smaller percentage of your overall cap on Yahoo, $3,500 on FanDuel and $3,100 on DraftKings are better prices than $10 on Yahoo.
Yes.
Frankly, mostly because they don't do a great job with their prices.
Yeah.
It's reasonably fair to price.
Agreed.
Which is fine. One of the nice things about pricing is it's a self-regulating mechanism, which is a way of saying in tournaments there's the whole ownership part of it. So if you completely screw up someone's ownership, well, at least 90%, and that is its own tax in a way. So it is not the end of the world for a playing environment. I honestly enjoy, as someone who hopes I'm taking a good look at things, having more mistakes because there are more skill points to take advantage of. So I probably, unlike other people, like sloppy prices. Like I was a big fan of sloppy prices. That's just me.
Please hit the like button. Perfect opportunity for you guys to do that. We have like 3,500 people in here right now, or somewhere right around that neighborhood. So
nice.
All the likes that we can get would be super helpful. We need to touch on an elephant in the room. What do you think of the status of one LeBron James tonight? Yeah. And in particular for the FanDuel people, how would you approach it?
Yeah. I mean, this is so for all players in all situations, there's some appropriate ownership. So you would have to take stabs at a couple numbers to answer that question. The first question would be, what percent do you think the chance is LeBron James plays? I will say 65%.
Ooh,
or 67%, and make it 2-1. Yeah, he said he's hopeful to play. Hopeful is not the most optimistic word. It specifically concedes the possibility. Like if you're LeBron, if you're sure you're going to make it, you say, I'm going to play. Or I think I'm going to play. When you say I'm hopeful to play, well, I would presume you would be hopeful to play. One should like playing basketball and helping their team. So it's almost a non-statement, but it's irrelevant. That's where I'll put the number. Let's use your number because it'll be easier. Let's assume you're at 75%.
I have one piece of information that I want to drop in for this, and then we can keep it moving. So the tweet came out at around 2:00 about LeBron James leaving to go home and rest and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The money line on that game dropped from like minus 940 to minus 700 for the Lakers. 2 hours later, it has recovered all the way back to minus 950.
Okay, that's
I think that information is relevant.
I do. I think that is relevant. And when in doubt, I presume that Vegas knows more than you or I.
Just wanted to, just because it was something that I specifically.
No, I think it would be remiss to not point that out in the conversation we're having. But anyway, the first piece of information is, what do you think the odds are LeBron will play? So we'll use an easier number based on it. Let's assume you think there's an 80% chance LeBron should play. Then your question would be, on FanDuel, what should LeBron's ownership be on this slate with the news we have, with the situational issues on FanDuel and him being a small forward and the other available small forwards with Pascal out and other spend up options at other positions and all the ways that plays out? with a 20% chance of not playing. What should that ownership be? And we had a very similar situation not that long ago with, I'm trying to remember someone else we were dealing with before lock, and they ended up being out.
Whatever I do is going to be wrong because I am the kiss of death on this shit. It's terrible.
That is what I've heard. Well, right, and there's so you can't, right? Yeah, you can obviously play him. You do not have to play him. So if you have him, I think you're fine. If you don't have him, I think you're fine.
Yeah.
But the question from like a percentage standpoint, how much should LeBron James be owned at that price in this situation? I suspect is somewhere around, and again, this should be a function of what he should be owned if there was no doubt to his health. Like if there's no doubt to his health on FanDuel, I would think LeBron James should be 25% owned. I don't know where you.
LeBron James is currently projected for 53% ownership on FanDuel.
Yeah, that is a really, really significant number. I guess I got to
small forward is
it's that
awful.
bad.
Awful.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I said it, I'm like, I like Anunoby and Oubre, and are there any other small forwards? So
you've named number 2 and number 3 for me. I think Carmelo is viable at 5,800 as well. Trevor Ariza is the pay down option, but it is gross.
Oh yeah, Ariza's in there at the 3.
By the way, Zach Zern, Reggie Bullock, I'm not interested.
No, I mean he has taken Damian Dotson's role as like the backup there, but now my concern is there's, I think, a reasonable chance they get smoked, especially if apparently LeBron is absolutely going to play. Which factors into your LeBron conversation too. What is the line on that game? Since you apparently have taken stuff at the ready, right? So some reasonable chance they get slapped around a little bit. I'm honestly surprised it's that close. Obviously the Knicks have improved of late, for which they deserve credit, but that's a little closer than I would have thought against a Laker team that I'm a pretty big believer in. Though Knicks are playing up recently and Lakers playing down recently, so I suppose that's where it is. But I would have thought it'd been like 14. But yeah, so I didn't realize that small forward was quite that terrible when I said everything I just said. So the numbers are obviously going to be all off. But
either way, it is interesting to see 50-something% given the information from earlier.
Right. Now, if you like at that point, I probably want to be under if I can. Like I can still get there's the potential of a blowout. There's a potential he doesn't play. You have to believe in the other plays. And looking at the other play, I feel pretty good about Kelly Oubre. $7,600. That's a tag for Kelly Oubre. Like I'm not like, yay, 76. I mean, he is a worse play objectively than certainly LeBron. But I can get behind Anunoby. I'm legitimately pretty excited to play Anunoby at 4,800, though he's going to carry some ownership on FanDuel. And punting the position with Trevor Ariza at 38 as a way to support the Anthony Davis, that seems like a pretty critical piece of this lineup, all feels just fine. But anyhow, you would say, so what do you think the ownership should be if he was healthy? That number is apparently 55 or 60%. That still feels a little high for me, so we'll call it 50. But based on how anemic the position is, that makes sense. And then, if you're going to say there's a 20% chance he's out, you should reduce it roughly proportionately. So, I think that's about the right way to handle that situation, just multiplicatively. But I don't think he's a must. I think you're fine to take any of the 4 other reasonable options and pay up other places. But it makes sense. Again, FanDuel, you're building sort of 5 mini lineups, and there's a chance LeBron scores 16 and is the highest scoring small forward on the slate by 35. That's going to be a tough nut to make up other places.
Do you think this makes Anthony Davis more interesting on FanDuel, where he is projected for half of the ownership of LeBron James?
Yes. Like, let's assume you think there's a 20% chance he sits, and that still feels low to me. Like left and went home, which isn't something that happens frequently, and hopeful to play. Like the line recovering, I would affect my math in that scenario, and I'd probably go 70, 75. And again, that particular number doesn't matter, but you're telling me there's a 20% chance even that I get Anthony Davis, who already looks fine, against the Knicks with no LeBron, which makes the game closer and reduces the blowout chance and all kinds of good stuff. So yes, I think it makes him significantly more interesting. And I'd be more inclined. Now, again, obviously you're making sacrifices in other places. There are absolute, and this is why these numbers are where they are. And again, I'm constantly impressed with how brilliant our ownership projections are, in that they've obviously done all this work. There are a lot of really good power forward plays, so many that I alluded to it earlier on the show, outside of this conversation. And small forward, as we just pointed out, is a wasteland, literally 6 playable dudes. So, yes, it definitely makes it more interesting. And part of his appeal would be based on the whatever % chance that LeBron doesn't play and you get Jan 88 fantasy points out of Anthony Davis.
I have 45% right now, and I feel pretty comfortable at that spot. Like, if it came in at 35, I'd be like, okay, I'm happy to not see it any higher.
Yeah, I'd be feeling very good about that. He is currently, I have LeBron and not Anthony Davis in my placeholder, but again, this is one lineup I built some time ago, and I did so obviously not having looked enough at the depth of FanDuel at each of these positions to make that determination. But yeah, I am picking up what you're putting down. And I like what you're saying. So yeah, I would try to be under 55% LeBron and over 25% Brow at that point. Just because, again, it's all things don't pay off evenly. And by that, I just mean first place is a really big thing. So obviously always getting away from ownership is particularly wonderful, but hunting giant upside games when they aren't that impossible to imagine is something I'm a pretty big fan of. But now I'm messing around with my placeholder.
Tanner T, thank you for the super chat. He said, thanks for all your effort, guys. It really helps. I have $25 left on Yahoo. Steven Adams or Serge Ibaka. I have no other Thunder and 2 Raptors.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
They're both really nicely priced. I don't have a good answer for this question. I like to say I don't know when I don't know. I do not have a good feel for how Yahoo pricing and ownership works out. And if I'm advising you on how to spend your actual dollars, I'm not comfortable answering that question, but I'll contextualize it as in saying, I have them produced pretty similarly. I am guessing Steven Adams is going to be the more popular option by 50% or so, maybe even a little bit more. So I'm guessing I would play Serge Ibaka, but that's based on those presuppositions that I am not strongly confident in being correct. Because again, I'm just not overly familiar with how ownership breaks down on Yahoo these days. And while I know $25 is a very good price, I don't know how good it is historically for those players or how good it is relative to other players at their positions. So I'm grasping at straws a little bit. But if you, with presumably more knowledge about that, agree that there's going to be significantly higher ownership on Adams, I would go to Ibaka. If they're going to be pretty close to the same ownership, I'd probably feel a little more comfortable with Adams.
Well, you know, Eddie, we actually have Yahoo ownership.
I was hoping this was coming.
Serge Ibaka projected for 47%. Steven Adams, 36%.
Wow. Okay, then I'd play Steven Adams. Now, Steven Adams against the Nets has been disappointing me for a couple of years now. Like, I constantly think that he's going to slap around Jared Allen and the Nets, and again, top of my headingness, he has disappointed me several times in a row. And they are on a back-to-back. I'm 90% sure I'm getting that one right. I think both teams in that game are on a back-to-back. Again, I didn't have a show yesterday, so I'm a little more specious on that data than I usually am. But pretty sure both OKC and Brooklyn played last night. So I would be hopeful that you get a similar minutes allotment for Steven Adams in what, regardless of his previous history with Jared Allen or DeAndre Jordan, is an exceptional spot. And I'm a big fan of centers against the Nets, as you should be. Gallinari being out feels pretty good. So it's hard not to like Steven Adams. But I would say that I'm not shocked if the minutes load comes down a little bit. It was interesting to see how much time they gave him in games where Nerlens Noel has been healthy. They like Nerlens Noel quite a bit as a player, and he gets, 16, 18, 20 minutes in the game, and Steven Adams gets the 28, 30, 32 aside. Without Nerlens last night, who is out again tonight, they boosted Adams all the way up to, I think he played 35 last night. I don't know if you have that handy.
I do have it handy. Time this guy out on Slack. We're looking at Adams from last night?
Yeah.
I think it was 35.7, but I'm going off of memory.
But it's all right. So we're both around 35, 36. Yes.
35.1. Shit. That's close.
Okay, there you go. So, Yeah, that feels pretty good. I would project him for less than that tonight. I would put him somewhere around 32 or 33 to account for the possibility that that number comes down a little bit and they give more time to, Muscala, the various backups there. But there's no Gallo there who can play some small ball five. There's no, so I think there's a reason to be optimistic. And it's a brilliant spot. And his price in the mid sixes or $25 is not sufficient. You'd have to project him pretty high. So if they have Ibaka higher than Adams, I'm assuming you have Lowry. I would probably play Adams at that point, but not a gigantic lean either way.
Okay.
That's a thorough answer to your question.
Is there a game we haven't touched on or a player that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure you talk about right now? We got about 20 minutes until we get to lock. I want to make sure that we're not missing anything that you want to get in.
We got to Brendon Knight.
Oh, Karl-Anthony Towns is out, by the way.
I presume that would be the case.
Yeah,
but good to see that keeps up. I will update my rankings real quick just because there are some dedicated people who are still apparently just crunching from my rankings, and that would give you some amount of Karl-Anthony Towns, and that would obviously be a bad thing. So I'm re-uploading. I don't bring up something else real quick while I re-upload some rankings with Towns out in them, and I had already upgraded. And let's upgrade Jang real quick. So
what I can say is that I already had a decent amount of gorgeous dong for 6K on FanDuel. I wish that we got no Towns news. I was good. I have him in 19.3% of my FanDuel lineups right now. Nice matchup. Big fan of both. A big fan of even at 68 on DK and 69 for Wiggins. I'm a big fan of both these guys. This is a really strong matchup, and again we've seen it a couple of times this year. The constant. Now the rest of this team, I'm a little dicey on. I don't think I assigned an A to anyone else on this team. Other than Jang or Wiggins, because the minutes have gotten really, really dicey all around it. Point guard last game, Teague is recovering from a knee injury, and we had been seeing more Teague than Napier. They play a minute or two next to each other sometimes, but you'd end up with somewhere around 28-30 Teague and 20-22 Napier. Last game, I think we had 30 Napier and 18 Teague or something like that. I don't know what happens tonight. I'm guessing it moves closer to the middle, but you might get 24-24, you might get 20-28, but neither of those minute totals are very exciting. And having Teague back in there removes some usage and some onus from Napier, Culver. Minnesota outside of that, I'm curious who your highest owned guy is. I'll put it that way. My highest owned guy of the entire slate? No, your highest owned guy on Minnesota, not named Gorgie Jang or Andrew Wiggins. Well, it would have been Andrew Wiggins. He is my third highest owned player on the entire slate. Let me sort by Minnesota here. I'll switch to team. Highest owned Minnesota guys. So I have Wiggins, Gorgie Jang, and then Robert Covington around 10%. Yep, that feels about right. But none of them feel like right. But it is a really strong matchup. I worry about being underexposed. Looking at the other side of this game real quick, I actually like Dillon Brooks a fair bit. I would much rather get to Dillon Brooks than Jay Crowder and what I've watched reasonably this year. The matchup really just portends a little better for him. Does very well against Wiggins' quote-unquote defense on the other end of the court, which he tends to see a fair amount of. If I'm looking at one of those guys, that's as far as sort of the wings, if you will. I would rather play Dillon Brooks than say Jay Crowder tonight if I was making that shot. While we are on the subject, other guys we want to talk about, I prefer. I think it's worth restating how good the matchup is for the Thunder. I like Chris Paul. I like Steven Adams. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Paul is my favorite by a reasonable margin. Okay. He has looked really good, and makes an interesting contrast with Spencer Dinwiddie, who I think is wearing down a little bit. This may be the first time I have not given him an A in GPPs in about 2 months, especially on the back-to-back. He looks a step slower to me. Like the eye test is noticeable for me. The jump isn't quite there. The shot looks a little bit flat. I'm a little bit
concerned with Spencer Dinwiddie. Don't think my dude needs surgery. I don't think he's any kind of, bad GPP play, but has looked a little concerning for me. I do think that he gets, sat on by Chris Paul for some part of this game. But on the back-to-back, trying to, carry the load of this team, a ton of it. They've gotten tons of crap recently, but they were really one of the better stories of this year, where they had no Kyrie, no LeVert, no Durant, obviously, and we're playing really well for a long time, and he deserves a massive amount of credit for that. But the last few games, admittedly in some tough matchups, they just came off. Orlando was the one yesterday, and Toronto was the game for that. So those are not particularly easy matchups. But he even looked a little bit labored for me. He played almost 40 minutes against actually the Timberwolves not that long ago, who we were just talking about. And just, watching those games does not look quite as fresh for me. So I have some concern there. And again, we're in a world where you have, Wiggins at 68, 6,900. You have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You have Chris Paul. You have all these guys, and they all cost $600, $700, $800 less than him now. So first time that I think he's still a B in tournaments. That's a perfectly acceptable ranking. I'm fine to have 10% Spencer Dinwiddie, but the lowest I've been on him in a month. I'll put it.
Yeah, I thought that I was going to be significantly higher on Dinwiddie. I've cooled a bit. I'm just kind of neutral to the field at this point.
I think it's worthwhile to be cautious with the with the Trailblazers rather at this point. That's still a particularly tough matchup. They're not as bad as they are when they're all hands on deck, but they're still a very quality defensive team, even through the McCaws, and RHJ has his strengths, and Lowry is excellent, and Ibaka is still very good, though not the monster he once was, but he's better when you keep him in by the basket. And that's a tough matchup. And bringing McCollum back into the mix, all of these guys just end up sharing a little more usage. So I like Whiteside. He has been brilliant. And he's been better as a basketball player too. Like he's always been a very good fantasy basketball player, but he makes many fewer bad defensive plays. I mean, significantly fewer. Like Spoelstra got a lot of crap for not playing him more, and I don't know how much of that is locker room Dion Waiters whatever stuff.
Yeah, I think it's probably some sort of analog to eating too many gummy bears.
Yeah, exactly. You and I had that conversation recently about the gummies, the gummy bear skin, as we like to say. But he's played much better this year, so I'm very impressed with his level of play, and I have no problem getting there whatsoever, especially at the DK price. I would generally prefer the spend up for Drummond if you can get there. Okay. But having all those guys in is really relevant for me when you put McCollum back in there. Cool. Don't need Trent anymore. Don't really need Simmons anymore. Bazemore, I'd have a small exposure just because the price on DK is nice, but I would have him in tournaments behind Giles and Knight and all the other value guys that we have talked about. So it's just worth pointing out that the matchup is pretty bad. I would avoid having more than one of those spend up Trailblazers in my lineup. I haven't been a big fan of Melo for a while now. A lot of the early big production games were based on really unsustainable steal and block rates that were well above his career averages, and he's nowhere near at his prime. I think we can agree. So even 5,700, 5,800 is to me too high of a price to play for Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony at this point, most analogous player for me is like Harrison Barnes. And we had a great Harrison Barnes day the other day where he was $4,300, and I was all over that dude. And so were many people. I think it was 18% owned, but he was a guy I was really focusing on because lots of guys were out. Even with lots of guys out, I'm not super stoked on Harrison Barnes tonight, and that's because the price is no longer so tolerable. So $5,700, $5,800 for Melo for me, still a little bit too high. Just is going to get you 15, 18, 20 points. 3, 6, 7 rebounds, and not a whole hell of a lot else a lot of the time. So the ceiling is really hard for him to get to. It needs to come from a metric pile of shots, which is bad matchup. Less likely he's going to have the efficiency he needs to do it. And you put McCollum back in there, little less likely he gets to that sort of superlative shot volume. So not super psyched about him or really anyone on the Trailblazers. I would start with Whiteside and then Lillard. Then probably McCollum, who will be under-owned, and price under $7K is relevant, but it's really hard because just guards who cost $6,900 tonight. There are 4 who are better than him. So it's just an unfortunate price point that he lands at. But there it is. And that's something I'm going to take 20 seconds and talk about, which is when you take like GPP pivots, they had to be ranked in a number of ways. And I guess I would just say, when you take a guy like CJ McCollum, I normally like taking CJ McCollum tonight. He's just ill. There's nothing structurally wrong with the guy. He's coming back. He's going to go out there and put his thing down. Certainly he can go out and put up a good score against the Raptors, but he doesn't just need to like beat one other dude. If it's him and Wiggins is 50% owned and he's 10% owned, I'm like, oh, great. You can go with McCollum.
Right.
And, all he needs to do is beat Wiggins. He's got to beat Wiggins and Paul and Gilgeous-Alexander and all these other guys who play the exact same position. So, the ownership would have to be infinitesimal for the math to work out the same way for me.
Okay. I'm trying to think if we had anything else coming in that we need to hit on. Any thoughts on? I feel like we're hitting on everything that's incredibly relevant.
I leaned to the questions. Like I generally look at it.
We just got a super chat. Must have missed it. This is from the Maharishi. Any thoughts on Bjelica for a DK GPP?
I like him quite a bit. I think it's 5,300. Again, this is a team that is missing likely 3 really significant contributors in a matchup that I'm not a huge fan of, although the Suns defense has been largely inconsistent. The pace takes a hit. It's going to be interesting to see what Suns lineup we get here, by the way. This is not a lineup, if I'm them, that I really want to try this Baines-Ayton theory that they're running out there. So I'm not sure if they reverse that today. They're going to change it soon. I imagine it is not today because it seems like a little quick to, publicly admit you failed and they won one of those games. And
have they failed? Have you looked at it at all? I haven't looked at like how they've been on the floor.
It hasn't looked great. One of the matchups was, you're putting me on the spot. One was
I'm pulling Knicks, it up now.
And yeah, like I'm curious what you have for the rankings there, but I like playing Baines, but the reason it's a bad idea is they have like 4 guys I would rather see play at the 4.
Yeah.
I would think the team is better with Ayton at the 5. I think is better than Ayton at the 4. And I think he's their long-term center and not their long-term power forward. And at the 4, I really want to see what you can give me out of McCall Bridges. I really want to see what you can give me out of Cam Johnson, who plays the 4. I really want to see what you can give me out of Dario Saric, who isn't that old and plays the 4. And I really want to see what you can give me about Kelly Oubre, who plays small ball 4. The hell are you doing playing your center at the 4? This is like the Knicks trying to like, how many power forwards can we get up in here? Like it's not terribly efficient. So I'm curious how effective they've been with the acknowledgement that it has not been a particularly brilliant matchup. But I think they've done it for 2 games, and they were the Knicks and the Grizzlies, I believe.
They've played 75 possessions together. They are completely neutral from a plus minus. 108 points per 100 on offense, which is not great. 108 points per 100 possessions on defense, which is better than average.
Right. But it's the Knicks and the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
The Knicks and the Grizzlies, right? Am I getting that? I don't know if you have that in front of you, but I'm pretty sure they've done it 2 games against the Knicks and the Grizzlies. So yeah, they're going to have issues on it's worse on both ends of the court.
Yeah.
I feel pretty safe. I mean, I like having Baines out there, but you are going to run into some guys that DeAndre Ayton is going to have some trouble with that on the wing.
Yeah, some team is going to step up and shoot.
It's just they're going to pick and roll him to death. Like it could be some really exciting stuff. And luckily for them, you can guard the Knicks with that personnel. They're not brilliant at that. They're not going to execute some brilliant double pick offense through Elfrid Payton or whatever. You get lots of Marcus Morris and lots of Julius Randle, and Ayton has a reasonable shot against that. But if they run out there and play, even Portland, or run out there and play Denver, or God forbid Houston or something, it'd be a slaughter.
By the way, are you trying to get Wood tonight?
That's not a bad idea. At my age, I don't know. I don't think it's crazy. It's another. Do we have a Pistons starting lineup? I've been off my news because I'm so enthralled by your conversation.
I don't think so.
Because we got Jan extremely strange Pistons lineup last time. Now they were reacting to. I imagine they size back down, but again, I don't know if you noticed. Last game they started Drummond, Sekou, Wood. That's a lot of meat. That is a quality amount of beef. Apparently, everyone wants to do what the Suns do. Sort of like the Warriors. Everyone wants to copy what they do. They're like, oh, lots of big dudes. All right, lots of big dudes. We'll pretend this is 1985. You be Sampson, I'll be Olajuwon. Let's get out there.
Yeah, I'm sure
Do some damage.
That's the team that I'd be trying to emulate, the Suns.
Yeah, so it's not undoable again here. So I guess I would say the FanDuel price on I'm a big fan of Christian Wood almost whenever you can get him on the cheap. Obviously, I like Drummond tonight. That would limit my exposure to some degree because there is still some negative correlation between those guys. But the FanDuel price on Christian Wood, I would definitely have some tonight. The DK price is a little more unreasonable, but it's not unplayable. I think Sekou is being a little oversold. Let me go back and look at our ownership projections on him. I think I'm just fine as a player. We have him as the number 7 overall owned guy.
Yeah.
That's a little high for me. But we still obviously have no Markieff, no Kennard, no Blake.
Right.
So
minutes are there.
Presumption is starts and plays minutes, and he feels just fine. Matchup is above average. So I like Sekou quite a bit. I have him ranked similarly to, say, Ariza, and we have him ranked right next to Ariza. So that feels about right for me. I have him higher, but not quite super. But he's had a real upside game, and the minutes feel secure, even in potential blowout or what have you. I think I would probably, at the respective ownerships, rather play Rondé Hollis Jefferson by a hair now that he's starting.
That's fair.
And our last ownership, we have, Rondé at 13 and Sekou at 23. At those ownerships, I have them projected pretty darn close. And obviously Rondé, there's some, minutes concern there, but they are basically going to run, the 6 guys they have and trust quite a bit. They're going to bring TD off the bench and run him in the 5 starters.
Yep,
a lot. And then I don't know exactly what happens in the entire, Brissett, Boucher, the backup Miller. Yeah, I don't know exactly how that's going to break out. That's always a bit of guesswork with.
I'm guessing
Nurse,
that Nick Nurse doesn't know how that's going to shake out until the second quarter.
Yeah. He's like, that guy looks like he can't run anymore. Let's give him 30 seconds.
Right.
But, yeah. So yeah, I would be a little happier, and in their particular matchups, going with Rondé in a single lineup and Sekou. If I had that, I'd make that swap.
Nets starting lineup: Dinwiddie, Harris, Kurucs, Prince, Allen.
Kurucs, how you doing, Rhodians?
Better now, I'm guessing. Does that change anything for you for Kurucs?
I mean, we're 3 minutes from lock. Yes, I would try to get some Rhodians Kurucs. I don't know how much he's necessarily going to play, but I'm not overly afeared of the matchup. He is, I presume, sitting at about the minimum.
Flat minimum on FanDuel, 3,200 on DK.
Yeah, I would still prefer to play Brendon Knight. I'm more safe in the minutes and opportunity here. Again, I don't know how much this has to do with the fact that the Nets are playing on a back-to-back, playing Orlando last night. But keep in mind, you are also dealing with the Chandler coming in and getting more minutes, and LeVert coming back, and they said they'll raise his minutes limit. It was 16 last game, so I don't know, 20, 22. Yeah, so
I gave him 20 for today.
And that's about what I'd give Kurucs in a related story. He's been playing 12, 18, 16, like in that range, various games. So I think it's a good guess that he gets somewhere to the area of 20 minutes now. I don't mind a couple shares. Not a horrific matchup for him individually. And he's the minimum price, and we got the news 2 minutes before. So some sort of ceiling has opened up. So a little Rhodians is reasonable. I'm going into the news tank a little bit.
Little roadie for you.
Great song by Tenacious D. I don't know if you know the roadie.
I don't know that song. I'm very familiar with the movie. That helps.
Make a note. It is not as good as the Iron Sheik note I gave you, which I think you'll admit is life changing.
Did I tell you I sent that to all of my college roommates, and they were like, "We have not seen this. This is the greatest thing ever."
Well, you were a hero then. Yes. I'm happy I could give you that. Yeah. I'm happy I could give you that for your friends.
Pistons starters: Brown, Mikhailuk, Snell, Demboya, Drummond.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. That's as expected. So it's Mikhailuk who had gone to the bench in the last game, back in here. So they did go back. This is a pretty big Cavs lineup, so I wouldn't have been shocked if they stuck with it. Doesn't change a lot for anyone. Mikhailuk would have the same ranking for me. Gets a couple more minutes starting, gets higher usage off the bench. Doesn't really change his projection at all. So that's not terribly surprising news there. Cavs also starting who we thought they would.
They are who we thought they were.
They are.
2 minutes to go, maybe? 1 minute, 30 seconds left on the ticker. Sekou or Chetty in a DK GPP?
Sekou. You got Kevin Love back. People need to keep in mind there's other guys missing now, but Kevin Love has a lot of usage on this team, lots of rebounds on this team. So people are like, these guys are missing from last game, and this guy's back with Kevin Love. It's like, yeah, but it's Kevin Love. So it's not the same as, yes, Larry Nance is still out and Tristan's situation. So
yeah,
I don't think that situation should be drastically overreacted to.
Taking one last look at that Lakers money line, does not appear to be moving, just holding steady. So good to know. Probably at 7:01, I'll probably know since all my lineups will be dead. 45 seconds, guys. If you don't have your lineups in, get them in now. And
do it.
If you want to, quickly go to superdraft.io, use the promo code AWESEMO and get yourself $20 on your first $100 deposit and get yourself $20 in super cash.
Taking a peek, don't see any overlay. People are lucky. They get us back to back, Josh.
They
We
do.
it again tomorrow.
If you didn't enjoy this show today, well, you're in luck because you're getting it again tomorrow.
We're on a 23-hour break.
What's the slate look like tomorrow? Have you looked?
I believe it is a tenor, so it's juicy. It's pretty juicy. It's got some meat on it.
That'll work. No complaints
Yeah.
there. No complaints.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it.
And
but yeah, it was a great weekend.
we
It's
are
strong, so-
locked.
Nice.
time
It's
it
going to be
is.
a nice. I think it's going to be a very nice daddy. Like there's two very good games at lock. Right, it's two.
There are two, and
Nice.
it's always a nice daddy. Like we
That's
know
kind of
this.
easy to say.
Oh, I just burped something. I'm not entirely sure what it was. I can't remember what I ate today.
Was it perhaps ketchup and eggs?
It has never been ketchup and
There's
eggs.
no chance it's ketchup and eggs that you.
The
just
only
burped
time
up?
that it's ketchup and eggs is if I'm eating like hash browns or home fries, have a little bit of ketchup on them, and the ketchup somehow makes its way onto the egg by accident.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not-
don't fight it. It's like maple
Yeah.
syrup on your bacon.
Yeah.
If the maple syrup gets on your bacon, that's fine. That's
I'm not throwing away the eggs or sending them back.
Yeah.
That'd be like the DFS industry's way of handling that. I got my own ketchup on my own eggs. I need to send these back.
we are a hateful, judgmental crew. I would
Alrighty,
say.
we've got the CSV.
Oh god. Okay, and then let me get in the tank here. Okay, so we have two games. It's the Detroit, Cleveland, and Portland, Toronto.
Yes,
Those are the games we have, correct?
correct. Alrighty, I've got it
All right.
here.
Okay.
You know
I'm
the
pushing
drill.
back.
We
I'm pushing
have
back.
eight
Oh jeez.
8 players in double digits of ownership right
Okay.
now. 3 of which are significantly higher than the others.
Okay, I'll go for the 3 high ones. That should be easy.
Okay.
Lowry, Drummond.
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Lowry 1, Drummond 3.
I always fail to do what I should do before this, which is take a quick look at our ownership and memorize the top 9 guys. Like it's right there, and I look at it. It's 620, 640, and then we start, and I'm just like, okay, who do we have at the top? I guess Sekou I'll take as number 2.
He is number 4. And number 2 is just slightly ahead of Drummond. Kyle Lowry is significantly ahead of the pack.
It's Kyle like 44 or something.
48 on Kyle Lowry.
Like that. Okay. No. Okay.
So you've got 1, 3, and 4.
Oh,
so
I
far.
bet it's Rondé then.
Rondé Hollis Jefferson, 30.7% owned.
See, you see what happened there? If I hadn't said anything, obviously our ownership would have been perfect, and Sekou would have been 20, whatever the hell, and Rondé would have been 13. But I screwed it up, everyone. I'm kidding. I did not move the ownership by 17%. Wow. Okay. Well, that would change things a little bit. Although I slightly prefer Rondé, so he's now higher owned. 30, you said,
Yes, 30.7.
and Sekou 20.
18.2. You got 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Lowry, Drummond, Sekou, Rondé out of there. Derrick Rose, who we didn't talk about. And there's not a lot to say about Derrick Rose. He'll get his 26, 28 minutes. He can pop off and do massive things. Derrick Rose is in there somewhere, I assume.
Derrick Rose is 5th.
Oh, we're going in order. I like it. All right, 6th is Hassan Whiteside. We're on DraftKings. Son Whiteside.
He is 7th.
There are 8 or 9.
There are 8.
So I'm looking for 2, 6th and 8th. All right, I'm looking for 2, I think. I'm sure Brendon Knight didn't get there. Anunoby, I think, will be the other guy in the.
Anunoby is 6th. You are looking for number 8.
I'll guess Lillard held on to some vestigial monster last game, no McCollum, and enough people just shied away from the matchup, and he held it then?
10th. He is 10th. He is not 8th. Close. You can guess like 12 different people, and they'd all be reasonable.
Okay. I think Serge is too high, but I'll say Serge. Matchup is really good. Maybe.
Serge Ibaka is 17th.
Okay, I'm gonna like Serge at whatever 5 or 6% that ends up being. That's exciting.
Serge, Serge is 5.6% owned.
I like him at 5.6%. That's a good spot. I mean, matchup with Portland actually ends up being pretty strong for him. It's not gonna be Mikhailuk. It's hopefully not gonna be Christian Wood. Oh, that's gonna be one of the Cavs guards. I'll say Sexton. No, not Garland. I'll try Sexton.
Colin Sexton, number 8, 10% on the dot.
Stressful shit. On the dot? How about that? That's like cheating.
Technically 10.04, but I rounded to 1.
That's on a large dot.
Kevin Love is the sandwich in between Sexton and Damian Lillard, 9.6% owned. Melo at 8, Bruce Brown at 7, Chetty at 7, Garland at 7, CJ at 6, Brendon Knight at 6, Serge at 5.5, McCaw at 5.5, Christian Wood at 5, Mikhailuk at 4, Bazemore at 4, Boucher at 3, Tristan Thompson 2.5, Terrence Davis 2.
2.5 Tristan Thompson is kind of nice.
Yeah, for sure.
6,000. Like I can get behind that.
Langston Galloway 1.7, Anthony Simons 1.1.
Wait, did I miss Brendon Knight? I feel like I heard it, but I was reading an interesting. I just got a message that said Osimo sent out something that said you loved Brendon Knight, so I have him in all my lineups.
5.
That's not what I said. Like I like what? Like if you had Harry Giles in all your lineups, like I slobbered all over Harry Giles, I would sort of get that being how I contextualized it. Osimo, what did you tweet? Yeah,
no idea.
There were a lot of exclamation
Brendon Knight,
points.
5.7%, by the way. And with a pretty sizable, you played yourself, 0.7%, Dante Exum.
Wow, for Dante Exum. Yeah, I someone told me we had him at, I don't remember, 2 or 4 earlier today, and I'm like, I think that's higher than that. I think people follow that. Like he was tournament winner, and that always engenders some significant attention. So ketchup.
Not on eggs.
Not on eggs. I don't think it's crazy. I like ketchup. I like eggs, and it is more intuitive to me than like jam or jelly or preserves and grilled cheese or something, because both ketchup and eggs sort of register on that salty end of your taste spectrum.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, I think true ketchup only has like 4 ingredients, 2 of which are salt and sugar. It's sort of like sweet and
vinegar
salty,
and tomato.
Yeah, I think very nice. I think those are the traditional, although you can get into the debate over what constitutes catsup versus ketchup.
Catsup. Ketchup?
Yeah.
Catsup.
Precisely. There is apparently, at least in modern culinary science, some differentiation between these 2 substances.
I don't know that.
Let me check my news, I'm not checking that. I'm checking to see if I missed any news while we're sitting here on air. I feel like that felt like it was a really quick show. That time went fast.
Yeah. Tyler Hitchcock with the $2 super chat coming in. Ketchup on mac and cheese. You are there's something wrong with you, Tyler.
Yeah, no. You know what goes on mac and cheese really well? You know what goes really well?
Please don't say this because I hope you're not going to say what my mom puts on there, which is in the ketchup vein. Are you in the tomato product vein?
I'm not.
Okay. Because my mom put stewed tomatoes on it.
What I may go eat right now, because I've been having some health problems, so I am off my diet until I recover. So I have not had this in a while, and I just realized I have the makings upstairs, and I haven't had this in a couple of years. Macaroni and cheese with a can of tuna fish on it. Not with mayo, but you get done, and then you take a can of tuna fish and throw that on top. Yeah, get a little protein in there, make it slightly less heart attack carby, but I enjoy that one. So I don't know how that ranks on the grape jelly grilled cheese / ketchup eggs.
That sounds like the least appealing thing that we've talked about yet from a food perspective.
That's a bold statement because you were really anti-ketchup and egg. So for me to go on top of that, I've thoroughly disgusted you.
The only thing that's going into my mac and cheese from the sea is lobster.
Well, that's an odd differentiation to get from one seafood to another. And again, not
that's
ketchup.
The only one. There are no other seafood options going into my mac and cheese.
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is, how can you be like lobster on mac and cheese, nom nom, delicious. Fish on mac and cheese, oh God, don't even talk to me. Like, that's an odd, like, I'm not miles away from lobster. And by the way, lobster and mac and cheese, I will agree, is delicious. That's
I don't think that you're getting a lot of support on the tuna and your mac and cheese. Yeah. You're pretty much whatever you recommend is going to be good, generally speaking. I think the chat is turning on you. El Negro Loco, chicken and waffles for the win. Yeah, that's just fantastic. Always.
Oh yes.
If someone says they don't like chicken and waffles, I can't be associated with that person.
I went to a place here. If you are ever in Dayton, by the way, obviously I'd be honored to take you out to dinner. There is a place here that is my favorite, and I can't remember the name of this cafe because I've only been to it 3 or 4 times, but they've all been in the last few months, and it's called like the 500 something. I can't believe I don't remember, but I was there recently and had their chicken and waffles just to die for, and they had this maple syrup with some sort of spice in it, and there's a lot going on there, and it was all good.
We've got 2 spots here that I like.
Yeah,
I'm in.
You're in the Carolinas, right?
I am. Yeah, I would. Messes up my day. They give a very substantial portion of chicken along with a giant waffle. It's like $8.99 or something like that.
It's incredible.
It's nap time after that.
Oh yeah, it's another heart stopper. Yeah. I mean, it is a not messing around meal. But I would say to those of you who have macaroni and cheese and tuna fish, try it. Okay, it's similarly to
you like Rob Schneider and Big Daddy go together like lamb and tuna fish. You prefer spaghetti meatball?
Was it you who told me that cried at Big Daddy or something? I had some show moment with someone recently who had that. Like, I always cry at the scene in Big Daddy. I'm like, that's not what I expect.
I have not said that to my knowledge, but I probably have cried to Big Daddy.
Oh, I think it may have been you then. Someone had an oddly emotional Big Daddy take, which doesn't stand out significantly for me. And like, there's the best bad Sandler, movie is Along Came Polly.
Oh, God.
That's
you want to scuba?
You want to scuba? Are you for scuba, Ruben? Is very. Do you know the story of the hippopotamus?
All I want to do because of that movie is cut all of my pillows on my bed into shreds. Yeah, and we have that same sort of scenario. Tons of them.
With the pillow, just tons of throw pillows.
Yeah.
That's I enjoy. Obviously, Philip Seymour Hoffman playing basketball.
Rain dance.
Rain dance. White chocolate. Like he's transcendent. I love actors who can do comedy and drama, and he was sadly met him once. By the way,
that movie.
Met him once. By the way, he actually was from upstate New York, and I was involved in theater and the arts up there. So I met him as he came back to see something I can't remember once in like 2000. But I was with people who were in plays with him and stuff where they're like, yeah, this was me and him, where I was, Sancho and he was whatever. Like it was but love John C. Reilly and him and people who are brilliant dramatic and comedic actors, because it's really not easy to do. They are wildly disparate skills, neither of which I'm terribly good at, but I'm working on it. But yeah, big fan of his. But
K.
best
Dot
basketball
says
movie.
tuna with mac and cheese is called tuna salad.
That's tuna with mac and other disgusting vegetables.
No
I don't even
cheese,
know.
really.
Yeah, there's, but no, macaroni and cheese. Kraft will do. Throw some chicken of the sea on top of that. Get in there.
Throw some actual chicken in there, and you might have me.
And it's good. Not like tuna fish with mayonnaise or anything. Literally talking about open can, squeeze out water, dump on top of, consume.
Yeah, no.
I'm gonna go do it now. I'm gonna take a picture and put it on Twitter. We're gonna.
I would have a hard time even trying that.
Don't judge me. Wow, that's a visceral reaction to. Do you now? Let me say this. I'm a big tuna fish fan of economy foods. I know you can't tell by looking at me, but there was a time, my body was a chapel, and I would go through eating a whole lot of protein. And my standby, I'm eating good meal is tuna fish. I went through massive amounts of tuna fish in my life, so I'm already a pretty big tuna fish fan. So the combination with macaroni and cheese, which again all human beings enjoy, I think.
Yes.
Works.
Long as you can eat both of those, as long as you're not like lactose
Yes.
intolerant. Yeah.
If you do not have a gluten or casein sensitivity that
Yes.
precludes you from enjoying. Yes.
Yeah, no. I'm tuna indifferent. I like a tuna steak or rare prepared tuna, sushi, whatever. I'm in.
My wife creates a brilliant tuna steak, and it's amazing because you have to cook it in this really interesting way because the inside has to be like close to raw, but then you like sear the outside. Like it is a difficult cook. So
Yes.
I don't say enough nice things about my wife, who is a brilliant woman, and among her many skills, cooking a badass tuna steak. That woman can make a tuna steak. So
one day I will experience that tuna steak. Maybe after I get all of my winnings from superdraft.io, where you can use the promo code AWESEMO. Get yourself $20 in super cash on your first $100 deposit. Again, go to superdraft.io. Use the promo code AWESEMO. Eddie and I will be back in 22 hours and 45 minutes or whatever. However bad I'm doing this math right now.
no, you got there.
It's been a long day. We will be back tomorrow. I will be back with Sal tomorrow morning to break down the show or break down the slate on the strategy show. But you'll get Eddie and I again back. We're going back to back like a Drake song.
Belly to belly. Don't mean a damn because we're stone dead already. No one's getting that reference.
I don't get it either.
For the win. Back to back, belly to belly.
Belly to belly. The only thing I know is the suplex.
That's the fucking Scott Steiner style.
Yeah.
Drop you with a nasty belly to belly.
Yeah, he did not care about your safety at all. Guys,
he did
thanks
not.
for joining
He will
us.
put you on your head. Sorry.
We will talk to you later. Best of luck tonight. Go Kyle Lowry. Go LeBron James, apparently.
Go Harry Giles. What are you doing? There you go.